Chapter 132, It's Him, Number 1 of 4 Peaks. Chapter 132, It's Him, Number 1 of 4 Peaks. In the spirit arena. No one could understand Feng Haoyu's feelings at the moment. When he saw Su Zimo charging at him, Feng Haoyu felt that he was not facing a human, but a savage and brutal demon. He could clearly see a red glint in the depths of Su Zimo's eyes. Thick, dense veins also popped up on Su Zimo's face. It was a shocking and horrifying sight. Losing his composure, Feng Haoyu subconsciously summoned his silver shield to block in front of him. When Su Zimo arrived before Feng Haoyu, he took a last step and landed with a loud thud, causing the entire spirit arena to shake. Splash! Su Zimo's blood rumbled and a shocking sound of waves could be heard by all the cultivators present. Swoosh! Su Zimo raised his arm in midair. The clothes on his arm were all tattered and torn into pieces. What appeared before everyone was a muscular arm as thick as a python with green veins popping out and intertwining with the flesh. It was as though water was gushing forth with an explosive amount of power. When his fist was thrown out, his flesh expanded once more and it looked like a gigantic stamp was falling to the ground with a shocking aura. At that moment, everyone had an illusion. Even though Feng Haoyu was a Foundation establishment cultivator, he was insignificant as an ant against Su Zimo's fist. Bam! The fist met with the silver shield and let out a deafening, earth-shattering explosion. The disciples felt their hearts pounding alongside the explosion as they could not help but gulp. Crack, crack, crack. A strange sound rang out. First, a gigantic crack appeared on the silver shield in Feng Haoyu's hands. It then slowly spread out and covered the entire shield. Shattered. An inferior-grade spirit weapon was shattered by Su Zimo with his bare hands. The crowd was dead silent. Everyone watched this horrifying scene with widened eyes and even forgot to breathe. Falling far away from the spirit arena, Feng Haoyu rolled a couple of times on the ground and coughed out blood. Closing his eyes, his face was pale and it was unknown if he was alive or dead. Things had ended just like that. Everything had changed so quickly that it caught everyone off guard. This was initially Feng Haoyu's victory after he had advanced to Foundation Establishment realm. However, the tides were suddenly turned as he was sent flying out of the spirit arena with just a punch from Su Zimo. Everyone's first reaction was that Su Zimo had cultivated some extremely powerful body tempering technique. However, why did that tempering technique seem like it was some demonic technique? By now, the blood on Su Zimo's face had faded away gradually. However, all the cultivators had witnessed the scene just now. In the spirit arena. Su Zimo lowered his head and calmed his blood repeatedly. Even though he had deliberately suppressed himself for that strike, the new blood cultivated from the marrow cleansing section had already been swapped into his marrows and it was difficult to distinguish or even control it properly. Thankfully, Su Zimo did not let out any obvious signs of demonification. Even then, that scene attracted the attention of the 5 Peak Masters. At that moment, all 5 Peak Masters stood up with a solemn expression as they glared at Su Zimo with suspicion and scrutiny. Suddenly, on the other end of the spirit arena, a bright, bedazzling light burst forth and diverted everyone's attention. The light came from the 10 formation steel. Suddenly, a change happened on the first row of the 10 formation steel. In place of the blank space, a name appeared, Su Zimo. Su Zimo cleared level 10, 7 days 18 hours. That row of words caused an uproar. Su Zimo? Why is it Su Zimo? This doesn't make any sense? Is something wrong with the 10 formation steel? Su Zimo was the mysterious challenger. Disciples of the 5 Peaks were so shocked that they couldn't speak properly. Suddenly a disciple yelled, "Guys, look! That's Su Zimo's sect badge." Everyone looked down. At the feet of the 10 formation steel was an inferior grade flying sword and a sect badge. That flying sword belonged to Feng Haoyu. As for the sect badge, it was Su Zimo's. "I've got it!" Someone suddenly shouted. When senior brother Feng and junior brother Su exchanged blows earlier on, senior brother Feng's flying sword knocked junior brother Su's sect badge off and it struck the 10 formation steel by coincidence. At that, everyone finally understood. But then, everyone was shocked by an even more unacceptable fact. Su Zimo was the mysterious challenger. That meant that he should have been the number 1 of Array Peak this year. Since Spirit Peak's master had previously forbidden Su Zimo from entering Spirit Peak, he was unable to take part in the face-off. However, Su Zimo had defeated the number 1 of Spirit Peak today. That was akin to him being this year's #1 of Spirit Peak. Coupled with elixir and weapon peaks, Su Zimo had achieved the unprecedented #1 of 4 peaks. The way everyone looked at Su Zimo gradually changed. They could no longer use the term genius for someone like that. He was a monster. Little Fatty was completely stumped. He could not help but recall Su Zimo once mentioning casually in his cave abode that it was nothing to clear the formations. Back then he was displeased and even told Su Zimo earnestly to be humble and to keep a low profile. "Bro, this is being way too humble," Little Fatty cried. However, he knew that this was not Su Zimo's fault. Su Zimo had mentioned that he was the mysterious challenger as well. However, Little Fatty was the one who did not believe him, thinking that it was a casual remark. Zhong, one of Array Peak, chuckled bitterly and murmured to himself, "I've made countless guesses as to who you are. Yet, I would have never imagined that you were a disciple of another peak, someone who had joined the sect for less than a year to boot." A strange glint appeared in Lung Ro's eyes as she could not help but wonder internally, given more time, would you take away my position as #1 of Talisman Peak too? The many disciples aside, even the 4 peak masters were stunned. Because Xian Yi already knew about it, he was not taken aback. However, the other 4 peak masters were filled with disbelief. When Xian looked towards Xian Yi apologetically. At first, he misunderstood that Xian Yi had broken the sect rules by imparting the hexagonal sword formation to Su Zimo without permission. Now, when Xian finally understood that Xian Yi had done it because Su Zimo had earned the right to learn it. Suddenly, when Xian recalled something even more important. With a swift motion, he appeared beside Feng Haoyu and checked the latter before heaving a sigh of relief. Feng Haoyu had merely fainted over and his life was not in danger. When Xian dug out an elixir from his storage bag and popped it into Feng Haoyu's mouth. He then raised his head and looked at Su Zimo in the spirit arena with burning eyes. Right now, Su Zimo had already calmed his blood and returned to normal. Even though the 5 peak masters said nothing, they required an explanation from Su Zimo. Otherwise, even if he was the #1 of 4 peaks and an unprecedented monstrous genius, they would absolutely not retain him. Chapter 133 Thunderclap Valley. Chapter 133, Thunderclap Valley. Regarding Su Zimo's matter, the 5 peak masters had a tacit understanding. He had cultivated some sort of body tempering technique and it was an extremely terrifying one such that he had the power to defeat an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator. But of course, it could not be denied that Feng Haoyu's foundation was unstable since he had just advanced to foundation establishment realm. Furthermore, he was unprepared. Even though Su Zimo had won this fight, all 5 peak masters felt that the outcome would be indeterminate if they were to fight again. Firstly, it was worth suspecting the origins of this body tempering technique. Something so terrifying could very likely be a secret of some sect out there, similar to Ethereal Sword. If that was the case, they would have to think about Su Zimo's background and identity. Could he be sent by other sects to hide in Ethereal Peak? Did he have some ulterior motive for joining Ethereal Peak? That was something intolerable for any sect. If they were to discover a spy, a light punishment would be to maim him of his cultivation or kick him out of the sect. Even a heavy punishment of killing him outright was considered to be normal. Secondly, that body tempering technique did not seem as though it was from the orthodox path. Instead, it seemed like a demonic technique. If that was the case and it was proven that Su Zimo was someone of the demonic path, all the more he shouldn't be kept. Despite admiring his talents, all 5 peak masters would have him killed on the spot. Something as such was non-negotiable. The path of immortals and demons was different to begin with and couldn't coexist. There was no way they would let someone of the demonic path stay in the sect to plot against them. They then recalled all the various abnormalities about Su Zimo since he had joined the sect. The explosion of the spirit testing gate. He ascended the peak against Little Crane's obstruction. He slashed at Xian Yi after clearing the 8 distresses formation. He managed to cultivate a level 3 spirit fire right after joining the sect. Su Zimo, do you have anything to say for yourself? The cold lady asked frostily. A look of pity flashed through Xian Yi's eyes. He had initially thought that Su Zimo could become the sect's 2nd sword formation master. However, he would not permit it if that sword formation master was someone on the demonic path. Killing demons was the duty of orthodox cultivators. Since Ethereal Peak was one of the 5 main sects of the Great Zhou dynasty, this was naturally something non-negotiable. Furthermore, the talent displayed by Su Zimo was way too extraordinary. If he was truly someone of the demonic path, he must not be kept alive. He would definitely grow up to be a powerhouse of the demonic path and would turn into a great nemesis of all orthodox sects. Su Zimo did not know how he should explain things. However, through the gazes of the 5 peak masters, he understood that he could be met with a gigantic predicament. He could not get through this. A calamity of life and death. Right as Su Zimo was about to speak, a loud and clear sound of a crane could be heard from the clouds above the heavens. Swoosh! The winds howled as a gigantic pair of wings covered half the skies, shrouding them with a large shadow. Everyone subconsciously looked up. A humongous crane descended from the skies. Flapping its wings, sand was blown everywhere. The clothes of many disciples fluttered in the wind. Some disciples even lost their footing against the strong wind and swayed. The mystical guardian beast had suddenly appeared. No one had expected that a match between 2 chi refinement warriors would trigger such an immense existence in the sect. In the eyes of many disciples, the crane was the most mysterious existence in the sect. Rarely seen, it was said that the crane was even older than the sect itself. However, one thing was certain: the strength and status of the crane surpassed even the 5 peak masters. Greetings, Senior. Instantly, the 5 peak masters bowed respectfully at the arrival of the crane. Hovering in midair, the crane did not move and swept its gaze across the crowd, finally fixing it on Su Zimo. Suddenly, it spoke in human language. Weapon peak disciple Su Zimo has resulted in chi deviation from his training. He shall be punished to an indefinite seclusion in Thunderclap Valley to reflect on himself. Everyone was stunned. The 5 peak masters were equally stumped. What surprised the 5 peak masters was that from the tone of the crane, it seemed as though it had no doubts about Su Zimo's background and was merely punishing him to reflect on himself in Thunderclap Valley. In other words, the crane was implying that Su Zimo had not cultivated demonic techniques. He had merely made a mistake in his path of cultivation, resulting in a chi deviation. However, the contradiction was that if Su Zimo's background and cultivation techniques were normal, there was no need to punish him at all, let alone send him to Thunderclap Valley to reflect on himself. If there was nothing wrong, why should he reflect on himself? If it was a mere chi deviation, all he had to do was to cultivate in seclusion within his cave abode with extra caution so that he could stabilize his foundation. Upon hearing the words Thunderclap Valley, the 5 peak masters exchanged strange glances. They simultaneously thought of someone. Trial disciples of the sect were no stranger to the Thunderclap Valley as well. Thunderclap Valley was a place between Ethereal Peak and the back mountains. The strange topography formed a mysterious valley where reverberating thunderclaps could be heard rumbling through the year. It wasn't a large place and it was barren. Every rainy day, it would even bring forth countless thunderbolts. Due to the thin presence of spirit chi alongside the endless thunderclaps, it was impossible for one to cultivate within. Being sent to Thunderclap Valley was a punishment akin to being kicked out of the sect. Suddenly, Little Fatty recalled something and mumbled to himself, "It's over, it's over. I already told Bro that he should release Little Crane. This is bad. This big crane must be making use of this opportunity to punish Bro." Naturally, Little Fatty knew that Little Crane was trapped in front of Su Zimo's cave abode. Some disciples also recalled that Su Zimo had once bullied Little Crane before he entered the sect. Now that the sect's guardian had descended personally, they could not help but relate both matters. That Su Zimo sure is unlucky. He had just gotten first place of 4 peaks. Before he can do anything, he's already being thrown to Thunderclap Valley. Some disciples in the crowd laughed. It should be fine. He'll still be equally powerful when he returns. Didn't you pay attention to the main point of Senior Crane? That person continued. Senior Crane mentioned an indefinite amount of time for him to reflect on himself. That means that Su Zimo will not be able to leave without Senior Crane's permission. It can't be that ruthless, right? Another disciple jumped in fright. That person shrugged and said, even if that's not the case, he won't be able to cultivate within. If it locks him for a good 10 years, we'll all be Foundation Establishment cultivators and inner sect disciples by the time he comes out. Even if he's the number 1 of 4 peaks, so what? He'll still be just a level 9 chi refinement warrior. Many disciples could not help but feel secretly alarmed when they heard that. Su Zimo remained silent in the spirit arena. In truth, he knew very well that the crane was not sending him to Thunderclap Valley as a punishment. If it wanted to punish him, it could have done so long ago and without any reason in fact. Why wait till now? Besides, Su Zimo had a vague feeling. The crane was doing this to save him. If it had not appeared, he would either be maimed of his cultivation, kicked out of the sect, or killed on the spot. However, there was something that puzzled Su Zimo as well. If the crane merely wanted to save him, why send him to Thunderclap Valley? Why was it doing this? Chapter 134 Exposed. Chapter 134 Exposed. Even though the 5 Peak Masters were perplexed, none of them dared question a decision the mystical guardian beast had descended personally to make. The crane soared into the skies, causing strong winds to howl as it flapped its wings. No one saw what it did, but Su Zimo's body was lifted off the ground uncontrollably, and in the blink of an eye, they disappeared from everyone's sight. After the crane left, the 5 Peak Masters exchanged glances and rushed to Ethereal Peak. They had to inform the sect master about it given the strange circumstances of the incident. Even after the 5 Peak Masters left, all the disciples remained where they were and started discussing. Senior Crane is incredible. To think that it comprehends human language and can even speak it. I heard that once demons reach a certain realm, they're able to speak like humans. That's not all. It said that some powerful demons can even take on human form, looking entirely identical on the surface. For many disciples who had joined the sect for a couple of years now, this was their first time seeing the true appearance of the mystical guardian beast, and they were filled with curiosity. Senior brother Feng really suffered a huge blow this time. He had boasted that he wanted to obtain number 1 of 3 peaks. In the end, he only managed to get number 1 of Spirit Peak. Number 1 of Spirit Peak? But he still lost to junior brother Su. It's not just senior brother Feng, I think this is a huge blow for the entire Spirit Peak. That's right. Back then, the Peak Master even forbade junior brother Su from stepping foot into Spirit Peak. Little did he expect that junior brother Su would take down his number 1. Number 1 of 4 peaks. Who would have guessed that the mysterious challenger was junior brother Su? Ethereal Main Peak, Ethereal Palace. The 5 Peak Masters arrived at the same time. Seated at the top of the palace, Sect Master Ling Yun looked as though he was resting with his eyes closed. When Xian cupped his fists, Sect Master Su Zimo and Feng Haoyu fought on Array Peak Spirit Arena today. In the end? I know. Before when Xian could even finish, Sect Master Ling Yun interrupted him. Ling Yun opened his eyes, they were like stars, deep and mysterious. He spoke in a low voice, the crane has its plan regarding this matter. Sect Master Su Zimo's body tempering technique is not simple. Among the 5 major sects of the Great Zhou dynasty, Southern Mountain sect is the strongest in body tempering. Since Su Zimo is not cultivating in the demonic path, could he be cultivating a secret skill of Southern Mountain sect? The brown-haired youth asked out of worry. I don't know either. Sect Master Ling Yun shook his head. This? The 5 Peak Masters were speechless. When Xian frowned. Sect Master, Senior Crane is a demon at the end of the day. Ling Yun's expression changed and his gaze suddenly turned extremely sharp. Narrowing his eyes, he asked, When Xian, what are you trying to imply? A suppressive aura surged forth from him as when Xian's face turned pale and he no longer dared to continue. The tension within Ethereal Palace turned extremely oppressive and cold all of a sudden. After a moment, Xian spoke, Sect Master, when Xian meant no harm. It was just that Su Zimo's behavior reminded us of that person back then. If Su Zimo is just like him, we'll have to keep an eye on him from now on. There's no need to worry. Leave this matter to the crane. After pausing for a moment, Ling Yun continued, Even though the crane is a demon, it conquered through the cultivation world with our founder master and established Ethereal Peak. You should not doubt it. Moreover, do you think that Ethereal Peak can become one of the Great Zhou dynasty's 5 major sects if not for the crane guarding over us? When they heard that, the 5 Peak Masters shuddered. They had long known that the crane held a special status in the sect. However, humans and demons were completely different beings and had different goals as well. The concept of coexistence was one that wasn't common. However, the 5 of them had not expected that the crane actually held such importance for the sect. You can leave. Ling Yun waved his hand. After the 5 Peak Masters left, Ling Yun's face revealed a hint of exhaustion. Deep in his eyes, there was a trace of slight worry. Enveloped by an invisible energy, Su Zimo was sent to a valley before long. After stepping on the ground, Su Zimo looked over, he was surrounded by mountains and barren land. Bang, boom, boom, bang, boom, boom. The sound of muffled thunder reverberated in the valley deafeningly. Su Zimo frowned. The spirit chi in this valley was extremely thin. Coupled with the disruption of the thunder, it was almost impossible to cultivate. If he stayed here, every day would truly feel like an entire year. After placing Su Zimo on the ground, the crane circled in midair and suddenly fell. By the time it landed on the ground, it had transformed into a beautiful woman. Her red hair was coiled up, looking graceful and noble. Su Zimo was stunned on the spot. The red-headed beauty before him was no different from a real human. If he had not known beforehand, Su Zimo would not have imagined that it was a crane before him. With a single wave of her hand, the red-headed beauty formed a barrier around them that isolated the sound of thunder outside. "Do you know why I brought you here?" She looked at Su Zimo with a gentle gaze. "I don't," Su Zimo shook his head. The red-headed beauty's following words made Su Zimo pale in shock and panic. "The demon technique that you're cultivating is very powerful," the red-headed beauty said shockingly. Su Zimo's expression changed and his heart thumped furiously. Instinctively, he lowered his head to try and conceal the shock in his eyes. What did Senior Crane mean by that? Is it testing me or has it discovered something? Many thoughts ran through Su Zimo's mind as he stood rooted on the spot. "If I was testing you, your reaction would be all the answer I need." The red-headed beauty laughed. "Don't worry. I naturally didn't want to expose your secret since I brought you here." Su Zimo asked, "When did you discover it, Senior?" "Half a year ago you knocked out a Spirit Peak disciple with a single push. Even though it was momentary, you let out the blood aura of a demon. While others may not notice it, a demon like me is naturally extremely familiar with that aura," the red-headed beauty explained. After pausing for a moment, she continued, "You are still human now, but with the passage of time, you will completely turn into a demon once your blood is completely swapped with the newly generated demon blood. By then you will lose all traces of your humanity." Su Zimo remained silent. This was something he had realized as well. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stopped cultivating the marrow cleansing section in the past half a year. No matter what, Su Zimo was still human. Even if he cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, he did not wish to transform into a demon. As though she could read his mind, the red-headed beauty said once more, "Even if you stop cultivating that demon technique, your body is already infused with demon blood. If you aren't careful, you will be exposed. I'm sure I don't need to explain what would happen if you get exposed." Su Zimo nodded. If they knew that he was a demon, the sect would either kill him or force him into a blood oath to become someone's spirit beast. Even if he escaped from the sect, Su Zimo would have a hard time advancing in the cultivation world. All cultivators out there only deployed those two methods towards demons. Chapter 135, He was here too. Chapter 135, He was here too. "I can help you hide it this time round. But what about the next time?" The red-headed beauty's question suddenly gave rise to a doubt within Su Zimo. He asked, "Senior, why do all cultivators possess such a deep hatred towards demons as though there's no room for negotiation?" When she heard that, the red-headed beauty froze for a moment. Her eyes revealed a reminiscent look as she sighed. The grudges between the two races have been going on for a long time. It can be traced back to the primordial era. Primordial era? That was the first time Su Zimo had heard that word and he could not help but look confused. Primordial era. Those words exuded a desolate and tragic aura, filled with the vicissitudes of time. The red-headed beauty seemed to be filled with emotions as she murmured, "That was a magnificent era. Ancient in the past, many lives were born during that period and all races flourished with the humans among them. However, that era was a tragic period to the humans." For some reason, Su Zimo felt his chest getting stuffy as though he was being suffocated by an invisible aura. He could merely feel the pressure just by hearing the crane talk about that period of time. It was hard to imagine how things would be like if he was born in that era faced with those circumstances. Sensing Su Zimo's abnormality, the red-headed beauty came back to her senses and shook her head. "Let's not talk about it anymore. All you have to know is that after the primordial era, Tianhuang mainland went through the ancient era before coming to this point of time. The feud between the two races had spanned through 2 eras and it is a hatred deeply ingrained in the blood of their descendants. It's impossible to resolve it." Su Zimo nodded. With a thought, he asked, "Senior, Did you bring me here because you have a method of removing the hidden ailment within my body? I do have one, but I don't know if it will work. The red-headed beauty continued. A genius once appeared in the sect. His talent was similar to yours and he was regarded as the future hope of the sect. However, he eventually betrayed the sect and fell into the demonic path, never returning since. Was he also a fiend cultivator? Suzimo asked in surprise. No. The red-headed beauty shook her head. He had an eccentric personality and was extreme in his methods. After he showed signs of entering the demonic path, the sect realized it and locked him here in seclusion to reflect on himself. True enough, with the thunderclaps here, he managed to cleanse the demonic chi from his body. Suzimo asked, what you mean to say is that I'm able to remove the demonic chi in blood through the help of thunder? The red-headed beauty nodded. Pausing for a moment, she continued, however, the demonic technique you're cultivating is extremely powerful. I don't know if this idea will work. But how do I make use of the thunder? I don't understand it all. Suzimo looked confused. I don't know about that either. Suzimo was speechless. Could he cleanse the demonic chi in his body just by sitting here and listening to the rumbling thunder? The red-headed beauty said once more, thunder is one of the most ferocious types of energy and is extremely useful in suppressing demons. Beasts are innately afraid of fire while demons are innately afraid of thunder. Of all the powers, thunder reigns supreme. Suzimo roughly understood. The crane meant that he might be able to get rid of the hidden ailment in his body with the help of the power of thunder. It was only a direction she was providing for him to work on. As to how to resolve it, she did not know entirely either. Right then, Suzimo's heart stirred. He remembered something. After the weapon peak face-off, he had obtained the mystic gold silk armor. From the disheveled old man, he found out that the owner of the mystic gold silk armor was once a horrifyingly powerful being in the sect back then and was invincible across the Foundation establishment and Golden Core realms. However, the disheveled old man was unwilling to reveal more about that man as though he had some reservations. Suddenly Suzimo asked, Senior, the genius that you mentioned, was he wearing a mystic gold silk armor back then which was a Khanate spirit weapon? A look of surprise flickered through the red-headed beauty's eyes as she asked, You actually know about this? Bingo. The powerful being mentioned by the disheveled old man was the same genius the crane was referring to. Senior, can you share with me about this person's past? Suzimo suddenly felt a strong sense of curiosity towards this person. It's actually nothing much. The red-headed beauty chuckled. Ever since the sect set up the 8 Distresses formation, you were the second person to endure through it. He was the first. Suzimo nodded. He had heard the disheveled old man mention this previously. Do you know how he managed to endure through it? The red-headed beauty asked. I don't know. The 8 Distresses formation is an illusion formation. In it, you will encounter countless people, many of whom will be your dearest kin. You will also experience life, death, illness, the 8 distresses of life. And that person. At that point, the red-headed beauty paused for a moment before continuing. He killed everyone he encountered within the illusion formation. Ah. Suzimo was shocked and could not help but exclaim. Those who are trapped in the 8 Distresses formation will not realize that they were in an illusion formation because everything they encounter would be too real. However, that person killed everyone in the illusion formation. How terrifying was that? Could it be that he has already discovered that he was in an illusion formation? Suzimo asked. I'm not sure. The red-headed beauty shook her head. However, he had not started on chi condensation at that time, so he should not have realized it. Forget it, these are all history of the sect. Just listen with a pinch of salt. The red-headed beauty said, I vaguely guess that you intend to cultivate both the immortality and demonic path in the future. However, that is a path no one had taken before and the future is unknown. The hidden ailment in your blood right now is only one of many. As you raise your cultivation realm, you will encounter even more trouble in the future, sigh. Suzimo was also aware of this. Right now, it was the wisest choice to stop cultivating the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. However, that cultivation technique held a special meaning to him. It was this technique that had changed Suzimo's life. In fact, it even changed the fates of many people around him as well. Most importantly, Daiyu had imparted it to him. At the thought of Daiyu, Suzimo could not help but compare her with the red-headed beauty before him. Daiyu should be a demon as well. Even though both of them could take on human form, Suzimo did not know whose cultivation was higher. Senior, if a person is born without a spirit root, are you able to help them plant one? Suzimo took a different approach instead of asking directly. After all, he did not know what cultivation realm Dai Yu and Senior Crane before him was at. Plant spirit root. The red-headed beauty smiled. It's not just me, I don't think anyone in the entire Tianhuang mainland can do such a thing. Spirit root is something you are born with. If you don't have it, you don't have it. Being able to plant a spirit root into someone artificially is equivalent to changing that person's fate against the heavens. Who in the world can change anyone's fate? The red-headed beauty chuckled again. Perhaps even perfected immortals can't do that. Chapter 136 Void Thunder Manual. Chapter 136 Void Thunder Manual. Suzimo did not know what a perfected immortal was. However, he understood one thing: Dai Yu was stronger than Senior Crane. Much, much stronger. He pondered for a while before asking again, Senior, if I'm unable to cleanse the demonic chi within me using the thunder of this place, does that mean I'll have to stay here forever? After all, she had only provided him with a direction. Suzimo had to figure out how to get rid of that hidden ailment himself. 1 year. I'll give you 1 year. The red-headed beauty said, if you can't do it within a year, we can only think of another way. Suzimo nodded. Don't be discouraged. That person back then did it and your endowment is not inferior to him. Perhaps you can do it too, consoled the red-headed beauty before she left. Losing the barrier around him, the rumbling thunder resounded within Suzimo's ears in a shocking manner once more. The area of the valley was not large. Looking around, Suzimo could not find any place to stay. He then assumed a lotus position and listened to the rumbling of the thunder in the valley, trying his best to discover the secret within it. Day after day passed. Suzimo sat within the thunderclap valley without his cultivation growing at all. The demonic chi within his blood was still there and did not show signs of subsiding. During this period of time, the spirit tiger and little crane would sneak over to visit him and bring him food. Normally, disciples were not allowed to visit someone who was locked in seclusion in Thunderclap Valley. However, little crane's status was special. Furthermore, the spirit tiger and it were not exactly considered as sect disciples. Even though little crane was trapped by Suzimo in a formation previously, it had gained quite a bit of benefits from the elixirs. In addition, seeing how pitiful Suzimo was caused its attitude towards him to change entirely. In the blink of an eye, a month passed. Within Thunderclap Valley, Suzimo opened his eyes and sighed gently. He still had no clue. If he were to carry on like this, he wouldn't be able to come up with anything even in 10 years, let alone a single year. Seems like that powerful being in the past is much stronger than I am. Suzimo laughed in a self-deprecating manner. At the thought of that person, Suzimo took out the mystic gold silk armor from his storage bag. Because there was no one else in Thunderclap Valley, he was not afraid of being seen. Standing up, he channeled the power of blood and instantly, his veins popped up as his flesh and body expanded. Suzimo could clearly sense the powerful energy cruising through his blood that seemed as though it could destroy the entire world. It was also that same energy that allowed him to defeat Feng Haoyu, who was in Foundation Establishment Realm. Heaving a deep breath of air, Suzimo exerted strength in both hands and lifted the mystic gold silk armor, sizing it up and down. Ever since he had obtained that damaged Khanate spirit weapon, this was the first time he was observing it so carefully. The mystic gold silk armor was very thin and extremely soft to the touch. It was hard to imagine that an inner armor so thin could actually weigh 5 tons. Just as Suzimo was sizing up the mystic gold silk armor, 2 pages of paper dropped out from within and floated to the ground. Suzimo remarked softly as he glanced sideways. Putting down the mystic gold silk armor, he picked up the 2 pieces of paper. Both pieces of paper looked a little old and exuded an ancient aura. One of the pages was tattered. It was obvious that someone tore away the bottom portion. On the first page was a single sentence while the second page was scribbled with writings. Suzimo took a look at the first page. This is a technique I obtained in an ancient ruin, the Void Thunder Manual. Even though it's incomplete, it has the Thunder Marrow Cleansing Sutra along with a couple of some other thunder arts that are rather powerful. I will leave it here for any fated individuals. When Suzimo saw that sentence, he understood. If he was not wrong, the torn second page should be a record of this Void Thunder Manual. These 2 pages of paper were left behind by that powerful being of the sect. With a complicated expression on his face, Su Zimo felt a mix of emotions. For all these years, the mystic gold silk armor had been kept in the spirit weapon chamber and almost entirely covered in dust. If not for someone like him who joined the sect after starting on the path of demonic cultivation, no one else would have laid their hands on this armor, let alone discover its secret within. Every single chi refinement warrior who visited the spirit weapon chamber would select a spirit weapon useful for themselves, who would choose the mystic gold silk armor. No chi refinement warriors would be able to make use of it. Even for golden cores who had cultivated body tempering techniques, they wouldn't be interested in a broken connate spirit weapon as such given their strong bodies. However, Su Zimo was able to refine his own inferior grade spirit weapons, and as such, he was not interested in anything else in the spirit weapon chamber. That was the reason why he took such an odd equipment. It was a complete coincidence left to chance. The last two words of the sentence, fated individual, did seem rather appropriate at this moment. Su Zimo smiled. This powerful being indeed had a rather weird temperament. Even though he betrayed the sect, he chose to leave this technique behind using such an indirect method. In reality, Su Zimo had only just stepped foot into the cultivation world, and the only technique he had learned was the Qi condensation manual. He hadn't even been in contact with any spirit arts, so how could he possibly comprehend anything just through the sound of thunder? It was the same for this powerful being of the sect back then as well. If he did not have this void thunder manual, he would not have been able to cleanse the demonic chi within him while he was trapped in Thunderclap Valley. Just as Su Zimo was deep in thought, the first page in his palm crumbled into dust and dissipated into the air. Too much time had passed and the piece of paper had already been corroded by time, turning to dust under the rumbling of the thunderbolts. Logically speaking, the second piece of paper was even older. However, nothing happened to it at all. Su Zimo rubbed the paper carefully and discovered that it was made with a unique material. Despite being rough, it was flexible. While so many years have passed, the writing on it was still clearly visible. Looking at the bottom part of the paper which was torn, a thought suddenly struck Su Zimo as he exerted strength in both hands and pulled the paper. It did not budge an inch at all. Right now, Su Zimo was in a demonic state and his strength was enough to even break a pseudo-spirit weapon apart. However, the paper was completely intact. Ancient ruin. Suddenly, he recalled this point that the powerful being made in his message and fell into deep thought. Through Senior Crane, Su Zimo knew that Tianhuang mainland had been through two eras, primordial and ancient. Since it was an ancient ruin, this Void Thunder manual was very likely a technique left behind from the ancient era. Su Zimo's eyes lit up. In the ancient era, the paper alone that contained this Void Thunder manual was already extraordinary. If so, this technique must be incredible as well. He started looking at the page of paper. The first line of words, Thunder Marrow Cleansing Sutra. When he saw those 4 words, Su Zimo nodded. What he was cultivating right now was the marrow cleansing section of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. This page detailed another marrow cleansing sutra as well. The combination of these 2 sutras could very likely resolve the hidden ailment within his body. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Su Zimo began cultivating the Thunder Marrow Cleansing Sutra in the midst of the rumbling thunder. Chapter 137, Transformation. Chapter 137, Transformation. A few days later. Within Thunderclap Valley, a green-robed scholar sat on the ground. Every single breath he took gave off an odd series of sounds. Huff, boom. If someone were to stand beside the green-robed scholar, they would be able to clearly hear the shocking sound of tigers and leopards through every single breath he took. Amidst the sound of tigers and leopards, there was a rumbling thunder sound as well. Treacherous and intense, the 2 completely different sounds shook at his bone marrow continuously, generating new blood. That caused his blood to churn and flow rapidly. Cultivating the Void Thunder manual was easier than Su Zimo had imagined. If the marrow cleansing section of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness or the Thunder Marrow Cleansing Sutra of the Void Thunder manual, the underlying concept was to make use of the sounds to vibrate the bone marrow such that the effect of cleansing and swapping new blood could be achieved. With the foundation of the marrow cleansing section coupled with the torn page of the sutra, Su Zimo was able to comprehend the profoundness before long. For anyone else, being in a strange place like Thunderclap Valley was something that would be extremely miserable. However, it rendered a godlike assistance for someone like Su Zimo who was cultivating the Thunder Marrow Cleansing Sutra. As time passed by, Su Zimo infused the Thunder Marrow Cleansing Sutra into the Marrow Cleansing section and created a unique breathing and expiration technique of his own, Tiger Leopard Thunder sound. He could clearly feel the demonic chi within his body being cleansed away by the sound of thunder. However, the power within his blood was preserved perfectly. Moreover, his power of blood turned even stronger and terrifying with the help of the Thunder Marrow Cleansing Sutra. In just a month, Su Zimo had already achieved lesser mastery with the Marrow Cleansing section. According to the mystic classic of the 12 Demon Kings of the Great Wilderness, a lesser mastery of the Marrow Cleansing section enables the user to kill an early-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator with ease. In fact, they can even stand against mid-stage Foundation Establishment cultivators. However, Su Zimo's circumstances were different. Since the Thunder Marrow Cleansing Sutra enhanced his power of blood with an additional ferocious, thunderous power, he could even hold his own against late-stage Foundation Establishment cultivators. But of course that was in terms of pure brute force. Strength was only one of the factors in a fight between cultivators. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo had spent 3 months in Thunderclap Valley. To his delight, most of the demonic chi within his blood had been cleansed in this period of time. The new blood generated by cultivating the Tiger Leopard Thunder sound would contain demonic chi. However, it would be cleansed away by the thunder sounds at the same time. From now on, Su Zimo could not only continue to cultivate the mystic classic of the 12 Demon Kings of the Great Wilderness, he could even activate his power of blood without any additional considerations. This was going to be his greatest trump card. From this day forth, Su Zimo wore the mystic gold silk armor under his green robes and underwent arduous cultivation in Thunderclap Valley bearing the heavy load. Initially he was not used to it. Wearing the mystic gold silk armor was akin to carrying a mountain on his back. It was extremely difficult to move or dodge, much less cultivate the multiple killing techniques of the mystic classic of the 12 Demon Kings of the Great Wilderness. However, as time went by, his power of blood became stronger and Su Zimo gradually adapted to things. All of his motions soon looked identical to how he normally was. Even if anyone saw him again, they would not notice that he was actually wearing an inner armor that weighed 5 tons. An intense cultivation as such had clear effects on the tempering of his skin, flesh, tendons and bones. His body tempering, tendons transformation, bones strengthening and marrow cleansing sections all made progress at the same time. But of course, that was not the only surprise the ancient technique of the Void Thunder Manual brought for Su Zimo. On the torn page there were also a few other thunder arts. Initially, Su Zimo paid no attention to them. After all, thunder arts were a type of spirit art. Because he had not reached Foundation Establishment realm yet, his spirit chi had not transformed into spirit energy. As such, even if he learned them he would not be able to unleash their potential. However, after cultivating the Thunder Marrow Cleansing Sutra, Su Zimo realized that there was a power of thunder within his blood. Hidden deep within his blood, that power did not belong to the scope of spirit energy. However, by making use of that power of thunder, Su Zimo was able to cultivate the thunder arts on the torn page as well as unleash them. This meant that Su Zimo was not able to unleash spirit arts that only Foundation Establishment cultivators could use even as a chi refinement warrior. Furthermore, they were thunder arts, the most powerful type of spirit arts. Since he did not have a thunder spirit root, Su Zimo was not as sensitive towards lightning and it was difficult for him to cultivate in that direction as well. However, since he was in Thunderclap Valley, Su Zimo received the first thunder in spring. In the skies, a bolt of lightning flashed and coiled like a snake. It seemed to tear through the sky as it plummeted, bringing with it an aura of destruction. In order to better understand the power of thunder, Su Zimo decided to try and draw lightning into his body. This was an extremely dangerous act. Each time, Su Zimo's body was charred black from the electricity. His skin was split open and his body was covered in wounds. Even though he was wearing the mystic gold silk armor, he could not withstand it at all. Fortunately, Su Zimo's healing powers were astonishing after cultivating the mystic classic of the 12 Demon Kings of the Great Wilderness. He only needed a few days of rest to return to normal. Within this valley, Su Zimo suffered unimaginable torture and pain. He wanted to become stronger. Strong enough to take revenge for Jurei Feng. Strong enough to stand tall in front of Shin Mingqi once more, strong enough to pursue in Dai Yu's footsteps. Each time Su Zimo wanted to give him, he would recall what Dai Yu told him. To become one of the greatest, you have to work on the foundation and be willing to take hardship and serve others. The path of cultivation was a heavenly defying act to begin with, not to mention cultivating the immortality and demonic path at the same time. From the moment he started on this path, Su Zimo was destined to suffer more hardships and pains than others. After cultivating the different thunder arts on that torn page, Su Zimo had memorized everything on that page in his mind. At the very end of that torn page, there was mention of a unique thunder art, Thunderclap Kill. Most thunder arts were released by the unleashing of the power of thunder. However, Thunderclap Kill purely made use of the power of the sound of thunder. The power of sound. The power of sound was something that was easily neglected, but it contained unimaginable power. Making use of sound to shake the bones and rejuvenate the marrow was a manifestation of the power of sound. At the end of the day, thunder arts required hand seals and activation of mental cultivation to release. However, the power of sound was an instantaneous power. If used properly in battle, it would produce an unexpected effect. It was a pity that someone had torn away the page and Su Zimo was unable to learn from the Thunderclap Kill section. However, back in Songlang Mountain Range, Su Zimo had witnessed a powerful spirit demon kill a spirit beast on the spot by erupting forth an indomitable roar. That memory was still fresh in Su Zimo's mind till this day, and it gave him some inspiration. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, Su Zimo had spent half a year in Thunderclap Valley. To the sect disciples, they were certain that Su Zimo would definitely have a difficult time raising his cultivation since he was trapped in Thunderclap Valley. However, no one knew that he had actually undergone a complete transformation here. Even though his cultivation did not rise, his fighting strength had risen by more than twice. Chapter 138, Spirit Mine. Chapter 138, Spirit Mine. This day, a bright sound of a crane that even suppressed the thunderous sound of the valley echoed out. After half a year, the crane had descended in Thunderclap Valley once more. By the time it landed on the ground, it was already transformed into the red-headed beauty. Looking at Su Zimo, she remarked softly in surprise, "You've succeeded?" Su Zimo nodded and bowed. "It's all thanks to you, Senior." Even though she was not the one who gave him the Void Thunder manual, Su Zimo would not have been in this place if not for her help half a year ago, let alone resolve the hidden ailment in his blood through the sound of thunder. "That's right." The red-headed beauty praised, "Let's go. There's no point in staying here anymore." With that, she swept her robes and left Thunderclap Valley, bringing Su Zimo with her. The wind howled in their ears, and in the blink of an eye, both of them arrived in the skies above Weapon Peak. "Go on down. Try to raise your cultivation to foundation establishment as quickly as possible to become an inner sect disciple." The red-headed beauty said, "Even though Ethereal Sword is no match for your sword formation, the real strength of Ethereal Sword does not lie in its power, but its unpredictability. First, Feng Haoyu did not manage to unleash the full power of Ethereal Sword and chose to fight you head-on. Second, he had only managed to cultivate level 1 of Ethereal Sword, Shadows." Su Zimo nodded. For it to be one of the sect's 3 major secret skills and even the foundation of one of the 5 major sects, there was no way it would be an ordinary skill. Pondering silently for a while, the red-headed beauty continued, "After becoming an inner sect disciple, you must not slack off. You have to raise your cultivation as quickly as possible and fight for a position as a legacy disciple so that you have the rights to learn our sect's secret skills. Other than Ethereal Sword, the other 2 secret skills are extremely important for you as well. In fact, one of them can even raise your melee combat strength by a fair bit." When he heard that, Su Zimo's eyes lit up. Melee combat was his trump card. The stronger his trump card was, the more powerful he would be, and his journey through the cultivation world would be safer as well. After a few more reminders, the crane turned to leave as Su Zimo descended slowly upon Weapon Peak. Weapon Peak did not change much after half a year. Around the Weapon Refinement Hall, Su Zimo caught sight of a few familiar faces. Junior brother Su is back." Shui looked at Su Zimo with a bright smile and greeted him while rushing over. Some of the nearby Weapon Peak disciples looked towards Su Zimo as well. After half a year, many of the Weapon Peak disciples had an improvement in their cultivation. Shui was now at the peak of perfected qi condensation and could advance to foundation establishment at any time. Everyone knew that Su Zimo must have suffered quite a bit in the Thunderclap Valley. As such, they did ask him about it and merely chatted with him casually about the changes in the sect. Feng Haoyu did not wallow in despair after his defeat half a year ago. Instead, he was even more focused in his cultivation and completely gave up on supplementary skills such as weapon and elixir refinement. After becoming an inner sect disciple, he reached mid-stage foundation establishment in less than half a year. Within the inner sect he was also well known and strong. A month ago, right as he entered mid-stage foundation establishment, Feng Haoyu defeated a late-stage foundation establishment senior brother and rose to fame after that fight. Even though he was only at mid-stage foundation establishment, there were rumors in the inner sect that apart from being a legacy disciple, he was already the number one of the inner sect. It would not be long before Feng Haoyu became a true legacy disciple. Even Leng Ro, who also had a variant spirit root, could not match up against his terrifying cultivation speed. But of course, Leng Ro was now an inner sect disciple as well, and as at the peak of early-stage foundation establishment. After chatting a little more with Shui Yi and the rest, Su Zimo left and returned to his cave abode. The spirit tiger and little crane were guarding the place. The moment they caught sight of Su Zimo returning, they were naturally elated. The tiger and crane pondered for a moment. They were going to have more elixirs in the future. The moment Su Zimo sat down, the sound of clothes fluttering could be heard from the skies outside. Right after descending at the cave abode's entrance, heavy footsteps echoed out. Su Zimo smiled and knew who it was immediately. Waving his robes, the entrance door opened. "Bro, I've missed you so much." Little Fatty ran over and gave Su Zimo a passionate bear hug. "Bro, you're really amazing. Nothing much happened to you despite spending half a year in Thunderclap Valley." Little Fatty laughed. "You aren't bad either. You're already at early-stage foundation establishment." It was easy to check on Little Fatty's cultivation using the spirit-peering art. Hee hee. Little Fatty chuckled. He saw that Su Zimo was still at level 9 chi condensation and had not made any progress for the past half year. Assuming that he would feel dejected over that fact, Little Fatty comforted Su Zimo. "Bro, don't be discouraged. Given your endowment, it's only a matter of time before you catch up to us." Su Zimo laughed. He had spent quite a lot of inferior-grade spirit stones to break through to level 9 chi condensation. If he wanted to reach perfected chi condensation, he would require even more spirit stones. However, his storage bag was empty now. Without sufficient spirit stones and perfect spirit-gathering elixirs, it was indeed not an easy task to catch up to Little Fatty and company. Sensing that Su Zimo seemed to be troubled, Little Fatty thought for a moment and said suddenly, "Right, bro, tomorrow a few of us inner sect disciples are heading out for a sect mission. How about joining us to let off some steam?" "Inner sect mission?" Su Zimo shook his head. "I'm only a trial disciple. How am I qualified to take part in inner sect missions?" Little Fatty waved it off. "Don't worry. It's nothing much for you to tag along, bro. Furthermore..." Pausing for a moment, Little Fatty continued mysteriously, "This mission is actually rather simple, bro. You can even get some spirit stones just by tagging along." "Oh." Su Zimo was a little moved. Right now he was exactly in need of spirit stones. "What sort of a mission is it?" Su Zimo asked. "A disciple out on training discovered a spirit mine outside of Linfeng City and he's currently mining it. Because this senior brother is alone, he's worried that itinerant cultivators might covet the spirit mine. So he requested the sect to send some cultivators to assist him and collect the mine spirit stones back to the sect." Little Fatty winked. "I've asked around in the sect. For a mission as such, even if we were to secretly keep some of the mine spirit stones ourselves, the sect would not mind about it." Su Zimo was deep in thought. Thinking that Su Zimo was worried about his safety, Little Fatty laughed. "Bro, don't worry. It's just an inferior-grade spirit mine and the majority of it is inferior-grade spirit stones. Even if there are middle-grade spirit stones, they will be extremely limited. With a foundation establishment cultivator leading the way, there won't be any danger at all." Furthermore, Ethereal Sect is one of the 5 major sects of the Great Zhou dynasty. No itinerant cultivator would have the guts to try and steal a spirit mine from us. Once we arrive at Linfeng City of Qi Country, even the city lord will have to welcome us with good food and drinks. We'll stay there for a couple of days and once the mining is complete, we just have to take the spirit stones back to the sect. "All right," Su Zimo agreed to it. Raising his brow, Little Fatty gave a strange smile and said, "Bro, we'll meet at the front peak tomorrow morning. There's even a surprise, hee hee." "Who is this trial disciple?" Lu Yongrong placed emphasis on the words, trial disciple, despite his seemingly casual question. Little Fatty introduced immediately, this is senior brother Lu Yongrong and senior brother Guanjin. The green-robed man smiled and waved. Greetings, senior brothers. I am Su Zimo. Su Zimo. Suddenly both their expressions changed and their pupils constricted. The air around them suddenly became stale at the mention of Su Zimo's name. A man's name grows like a tree's shadow. While there were still inner sect disciples who had not seen Su Zimo in real life after the Five Peaks face-off, there was nobody who hadn't heard of that name. It was unprecedented for anyone to be number 1 in 4 peaks. A chi condensation warrior who could defeat a Foundation establishment cultivator despite the gap in realm. Moreover, that Foundation establishment cultivator was none other than the current limelight who was thought to be the number 1 of the inner sect. After the fight half a year ago, many inner sect disciples gathered on Weapon Peak hoping to catch a glimpse of Su Zimo only to be disappointed. After they heard that he was locked up in Thunderclap Valley for chi deviation, everyone merely laughed it off and stopped caring. All of them knew that once cultivation could not be raised in Thunderclap Valley. Even if it was an unparalleled genius who was locked there indefinitely, it would spell the end of his path of cultivation. In just half a year, Su Zimo was released. Lu Yongrong and Guanjin were both secretly shocked. Given the talent that Su Zimo was displaying, it was only a matter of time before he caught up to them. Lu Yongrong thought to himself, no wonder junior sister Lung has such a different attitude towards this person. So he is Su Zimo. He doesn't look like anything special. I heard that his body has been tempered to a strong degree, but why does he look just like a frail scholar? Guanjin lamented internally as well, frowning as he sized up Su Zimo. After a moment, Lu Yongrong suddenly said, Junior brother Su, I've heard a lot about you. Pausing for a moment, he changed the topic. I heard that you were already at level 9 chi condensation half a year ago. Why hasn't your cultivation improved after such a long time? He was clearly pointing out the obvious and it was full of provocation. Guanjin exclaimed with curiosity in his eyes. Junior brother Su, I heard that you entered chi deviation in your cultivation. Why were you so careless? Since you were just released from Thunderclap Valley, let me give you a word of advice as your senior. You should go back to cultivate in seclusion lest you make any more mistakes and affect your own future. Su Zimo was a smart man. From the way they looked at Lung Ro, he could vaguely guess what they were thinking. Towards their sarcastic questions, Su Zimo smiled and replied casually, Thank you for the concern, senior brothers. Little Fatty heaved a sigh of relief at Su Zimo's reaction. Initially he was so nervous that his palms were sweating entirely. Little Fatty understood Su Zimo's temperament and was afraid that the latter might fight with those two over that unpleasantness. Back then, Su Zimo dared to point his saber at Qinyu of the disciplinary hall. These two senior brothers did not have what it takes to hold down Su Zimo. However, things were different to Su Zimo right now. Back in Spirit Peak, Qinyu was obviously biased towards Feng Haoyu and even wanted to maim him of his cultivation despite the spirit tiger being injured. That was why Su Zimo was unable to tolerate it. Even though these two senior brothers were also hostile towards him, it was just due to petty thoughts. Since it was nothing much, Su Zimo could naturally let it slide with just a smile. He no longer looked at Lu Yongrong and Guanjin, merely reaching out to fondle the spirit tiger on the head. Instantly, Lu Yongrong and Guanjin were furious. They were being ignored. However, what the both of them did not know was that Su Zimo was actually comforting the spirit tiger. Otherwise, it would have lunged and attacked both of them given its wild nature. Chapter 140 Mistaken Identity. Chapter 140, Mistaken Identity. Caw-caw. Right then, a crane cried out from not far away. Roar. Growling softly, the spirit tiger looked at Little Crane that was flying over, as if greeting it. Little Crane had always been in Ethereal Peak and had never left the sect. This was a rare opportunity and it naturally wanted to tag along for some fun secretly. However, Su Zimo did not dare to make the decision on his own and he had it ask Senior Crane for permission. When Little Crane heard that, it became dejected immediately. Its mother had always been extremely strict and had once said that it was not allowed to leave the sect until it was at Golden Core Realm. Initially, Little Crane did not bear much hope. However, the moment its mother heard that it was going with Su Zimo, she agreed to it right away. Naturally, Little Crane was elated and quickly chased after them. Isn't that the little crane in our sect? Why is it here? Lu Yangrong remarked in soft surprise. Guanjin pondered and replied, perhaps it's just passing by. Clearing his throat, Lu Yangrong swept his gaze across Su Zimo and the rest. He said in a deep voice, it is said that the little crane's background is not simple. It is the child of ethereal sect's mystical guardian beast. Guanjin could tell that Lu Yangrong was boasting and could not help but scoff. Which inner sect disciple doesn't know about this? Raising his brow, a look of smugness flickered through Lu Yangrong's eyes as he harumphed softly, I've been in contact with little crane before. Previously I even fed it once. Given its intelligence it might even remember me. In reality, Lu Yangrong was not the one who had taken the initiative to feed little crane. Because Su Zimo spent half a year in Thunderclap Valley, little crane did not have any elixirs and it felt extremely uncomfortable. Coincidentally, it passed by Lu Yangrong who had just obtained a rather decent elixir and instantly, little crane robbed him. Because of that, little crane was taught a lesson by its mother. Guanjin's expression darkened and he did not say anything. Feeling that he had gained the upper hand, Lu Yangrong was in a good mood. Right then, little crane arrived above their heads and chirped a couple of times before descending slowly. The moment he saw that, Lu Yangrong repressed the excitement in his heart and no longer looked at Guanjin. Turning slightly, he smiled to Lu Yangrong. Junior Sister Lung, don't you think little crane is really intelligent? I've only fed it once and it remembered it dearly. Now it even came looking for me specially, hee hee. Right after he said that, little crane descended before everyone. Lu Yangrong let out a bright smile and greeted, little crane my friend. It's been a long time. Little crane tilted its head slightly and looked at Lu Yangrong as if it was trying to recall who this person smiling so disgustingly was. It thought for a while but could not recall. Ignoring that person, it walked towards Su Zimo and lowered its head. Rubbing gently against his arm with its sharp beak, it blinked and called out purringly. Whether or not it could head out and play depended on whether Su Zimo wanted to bring it along. Little crane was wheedling to Su Zimo. That scene stunned everyone as their jaws almost dropped to the ground. Anyone who had resided in Ethereal Peak for a couple of years would know about little crane. However, none of them had ever heard of it being this intimate with any cultivator of the sect at all. What was with this change in attitude? Wasn't it the child of the mystical guardian beast? Something wasn't right. It did look the same and there was only a single crane in the sect. Guanjin suddenly chuckled. Oh my, this is bad. Who was the one shamelessly boasting that he had fed little crane before and that it recognized him? Lu Yangrong was embarrassed and his face turned red. He wished he could dig a hole and hide in it. What's there to be smug about? Maybe it got the wrong person. Lu Yangrong rebutted and walked towards little crane. Smiling, he cupped his fists. Little crane my friend. It's me. Are you mistaken? A while ago you even ate an elixir of mine, remember? Lu Yangrong was better off if he hadn't said that. The moment he elaborated, little crane recalled how it was punished by its mother for that incident. Caw-caw. Suddenly it cried out twice. Its voice was sharp and piercing, and its gaze was murderous. Caught off guard, Lu Yangrong stumbled a couple of steps back and shuddered in fear. Ha ha ha. When he saw Lu Yangrong being humiliated, Guanjin could not help but burst out into laughter. No inner sect disciple would know of Su Zimo's relationship with little crane. Of the people present, only little fatty vaguely knew about it. Su Zimo patted little crane on the head lightly and scolded jokingly, "Stupid bird, why are you so fierce?" Their relationship had always been like this. However, that scene made both Lu Yangrong and Guanjin stare in shock. Even though Lu Yangrong was an inner sect disciple at Midstage Foundation establishment, he had to greet little crane courteously as a friend. However, Su Zimo could call it a stupid bird. Not just that, that guy even hit little crane. Yet, the strangest thing was that little crane was not angered. Instead, it was still rubbing against that guy's arm. Little fatty looked at Lu Yangrong and Guanjin before shaking his head and lamenting internally, "If you guys knew that bro had little crane locked up for more than 3 months, you would be scared silly." Did she agree? Su Zimo asked. Little crane nodded hurriedly, its eyes filled with anticipation waiting for Su Zimo to agree. Su Zimo replied, "All right, let's go together then." Pausing for a moment, Su Zimo felt that something was amiss again. He turned to look at Lung Ro and the rest, asking, "Senior Sister Lung and fellow senior brothers, will there be any problem if little crane comes along?" And a no problem. Lu Yongrong was completely stumped as he replied instinctively. Lung Ro's lips curled slightly as she revealed a faint smile and nodded. Putting aside the fact that Little Crane's strength was equivalent to a spirit demon at Foundation Establishment realm, who would dare to stop it from tagging along given its status? Since everyone's here, let's make a move and try to get to Linfeng City as early as possible. Little Fatty coughed and rubbed his hands. Lung Ro nodded. Rolling his eyes, a plot came to mind as Lu Yongrong suddenly said, "You're right, junior brother. We should get to Linfeng City as quickly as possible. However, junior brother Su's cultivation is too low. How is he going to catch up with our speed on sword kinesis flight?" "That's right." Guanjin nodded too. "Even though the trip isn't dangerous, I think it's better if junior brother Su doesn't go. Our speed will be too slow with you tagging along." Lu Yongrong and Guanjin were initially competing against one another in secret. However, both of them felt a sense of danger at the same time with Su Zimo's appearance. With a tacit understanding, both of them wished to knock Su Zimo out of the picture should an opportunity arise. By that statement they were implying that Su Zimo would be a burden to them. However, that was something Su Zimo truly could not refute. After all, he was only at level 9 Qi condensation. In terms of sword kinesis flight speed, he was far inferior to Foundation Establishment cultivators. But if he were to run on the ground, without even using his power of blood, Su Zimo would be even faster than the sword kinesis flight of Foundation Establishment cultivators by making use of his divine steed fleeting. It's fine. Little Fatty laughed. "I'll catch up to you guys carrying bro with me. Your speed is the slowest amongst us and you're thinking of carrying someone else? Won't you be even slower then?" Guanjin frowned. Lu Yongrong smiled. "How about this? Since I'm the strongest, let me carry junior brother Su." Right after he said that, Lu Yongrong even looked at Lung Ro intentionally. Even though Lu Yongrong sounded like he was helping Su Zimo, there was a hint of boasting to his words. Chapter 141, Dead Quiet Ancient City. Chapter 141, Dead Quiet Ancient City. The moment Little Crane heard those people looking down on Su Zimo's speed, it was displeased on the spot. It wasn't feeling unfair for Su Zimo. Instead, it was because if Su Zimo backed off and did not go, it would not be able to join him to have fun. Little Crane cried and bent down. The spirit tiger was the first to understand what was happening as it hopped onto Little Crane in a delighted manner. Little Crane's body trembled slightly and it felt disgusted for a moment. However, it did not chase the spirit tiger away and instead looked at Su Zimo, signaling for him to hop on as well. This time round, it wasn't just Su Zimo. Everyone understood what was happening. Little Crane wanted to carry Su Zimo on it. The speed of a Foundation Establishment realm spirit demon was much faster than Lu Yongrong and the others. Furthermore, who would have imagined that the child of the mystical guardian beast would actually be willing to lower its dignity and carry a Qi refinement warrior? What kind of treatment was that? Lu Yongrong and Guanjin were both red with envy. If it was the both of them, they would have hopped on eagerly. However, Su Zimo frowned. Hesitating for a moment, he said deeply, "I'm quite heavy. Are you able to carry me?" Su Zimo was wearing the mystic gold silk armor which weighed a full 5 tons. If he wanted to take off the mystic gold silk armor, he would have to remove his green robes. However, that wasn't convenient with Lung Ro around. Little Crane believed none of that. Pouting its lips, it raised its head and lamented internally, "How much can a mere Qi refinement warrior weigh?" "Caw-caw." Little Crane chirped and urged Su Zimo to hurry up. Coughing gently, Su Zimo reminded, "Be careful." With that said, Su Zimo leaped onto Little Crane's back. Thump. Instantly, Little Crane fell to the ground head first, eating a mouthful of dust. Instantly, it was enraged and nearly cursed out in human tongue. How was that a little heavy? That was damn bloody heavy. In truth, due to Little Crane's unique bloodline and its cultivation, it could carry objects of that weight without any issues. However, it was caught totally off guard and naturally fell when something that heavy leaped onto it all of a sudden. Embarrassed, Su Zimo said, "Why don't I come down?" Caw-caw. Little Crane was upset. That was obviously questioning its ability. Channeling its blood, Little Crane flapped and slowly flew up. Under Lu Yongrong and Guanjin's envious stares, it flew out of the sect. Little Fatty summoned his flying sword and declared while waving, "Let's go." Before long, Little Crane adapted to the weight on its body. Even though it wasn't fast, it was still far ahead of the other 4. The 7 of them headed towards Linfeng City. The distance between Ethereal Peak and Linfeng City was not too far apart. It would take approximately a day to arrive given the speed of early-stage Foundation establishment cultivators. Along the way, the group of them came across other cultivators as well. When the outsiders caught sight of their sect badge, all of them gave way respectfully. Be it itinerant cultivators or minor sects, all of them have heard of Ethereal Peak. To them, Ethereal Peak was a massive entity that no one wanted to offend. In the blink of an eye, a day had passed. Nearing dusk, an ancient city gradually appeared in front of them. That was their destination, Linfeng City. Little Crane slowed down gradually. Looking at the ancient city in the distance, Su Zimo narrowed his gaze as though in deep thoughts. Lung Ro and the others caught up from behind. Lu Yongrong walked over to Little Crane and took out an elixir from his storage bag. Smiling, he asked, "Little Crane, my friend, you must be tired, right? How about taking an elixir to replenish your energy?" Little Crane turned slightly and instantly, its eyes lit up. Reaching out, it picked up the elixir in Lu Yongrong's palm and raised its head, swallowing it in one go. When Lu Yongrong saw Little Crane consuming the elixir, he was elated. He had been extremely envious of the fact that Little Crane was willing to carry Su Zimo on its back. Being carried by a spirit demon was much more flamboyant compared to sword kinesis flight. Also, it was less tiring. Lu Yongrong coughed gently and asked, "Little Crane, my friend, how about giving me a ride so I can rest too?" Little Crane spun its head away and ignored him completely. "You stupid." Lu Yongrong swallowed back his words. Even if Su Zimo dared to call Little Crane stupid bird, he did not have the guts. Watching Lu Yongrong make a fool of himself from the sidelines, Guanjin scoffed coldly. Right then Su Zimo suddenly said, "Everyone watch out. Something isn't right about Linfeng City." "What's wrong?" Humiliated by Little Crane, Lu Yongrong was fuming. The moment he heard Su Zimo, he retorted, "Don't give instructions if you don't know anything. You're just a level 9 Qi refinement warrior." Exactly. At this moment, Guanjin was on the same side as Lu Yongrong. He had no intention of letting Su Zimo off as he continued, "What's wrong with Linfeng City? Everything feels normal to me. Even though it's already evening time, there's no lights in the city. It's strange." Su Zimo shook his head. Lung Ro furrowed her brows, clearly realizing this. Lu Yongrong snorted lightly, "It's not actually night yet. What kind of lights do you want?" In a short while, all 5 of them arrived at the skies above Linfeng City and descended slowly. This time, even Lu Yongrong and Guanjin noticed something odd about the city. It was too quiet. The ancient city streets were empty without a single person. Even at dusk, it shouldn't be this quiet. It was as if the entire city was empty and everyone had disappeared, leaving it in dead silence. The 5 of them landed in Linfeng City and looked around. Shops on either side of the streets were tightly shut, as though they hadn't been open yet. The atmosphere in the ancient city was strange and even sinister. Su Zimo's nostrils flared, but he could not smell any blood. "What's going on?" Little Fatty asked with a stern expression. In theory, the city lord of Linfeng City should have prepared long ago to send someone to welcome them. Yet there wasn't a single person to be seen in Linfeng City right now. Lu Yongrong shook his head. He gripped his flying sword tightly with a tense expression. The spirit tiger's ears flapped as it looked around, its claws digging the ground constantly with unease. Little Crane behaved the same way and flapped its wings. After pondering for a moment, Lu Yongrong made a decision and said in a low voice, "Let's go. We'll check out the city lord's residence first." His cultivation was the highest among them. Even though no one said anything, it was a silent agreement to accept him as the leader. This time round, none of them used sword kinesis flight. Apart from Su Zimo, everyone had expended a lot of spirit chi to get here. That was why they chose to walk now. Walking along the quiet streets, all 5 of them looked around and listened to everything, taking note of any activity. All of a sudden noise sounded out behind them. Instantly, Lu Yongrong felt the hair on his neck stand on end. He spun around furiously and looked back. Not far away, a gigantic triangular flag with the word "wine" flapped in the wind, letting out sounds. It was a false alarm. Lu Yongrong and the others heaved a sigh of relief. Yet another strange gust of cold wind blew by and suddenly, Lu Yangrong realized, he had broken out into cold sweat before he knew it. This is freaking weird. He cursed and continued walking. Chapter 142, Discovery. Chapter 142, Discovery. They hadn't walked far when Lu Yangrong stopped in his tracks. There were two people lying on the street not far ahead. Motionless, their faces could not be seen. One of them was holding a gong in his hand while the other had a tool. From the looks of it, they were probably the night watchmen of Linfeng City. However, why would they be here since night had yet to truly arrive? Why were they sprawled on the ground as well? Hey night watchman. Are you guys dead or alive? Lu Yangrong grabbed his flying sword. He did not rush forward and merely asked on the spot. Guan Jin scoffed coldly at the side. What could be up with an ancient city full of mortals to deserve such caution from us? Even though he said that, Guan Jin clasped a protective talisman in his hand. Heading forth, he flipped one of them over. Ah! Guan Jin exclaimed and stumbled a couple of steps back. Su Zimo and others at the back could clearly tell that the person was dead. All of them had seen dead people before. Yet this was the first time they had seen such a horrifying death. The night watchman's face was shriveled and his skin stuck to the bones. It was as though his flesh and blood were drained, leaving only gray eyeballs that watched ahead confusedly. Even when he died, that person most likely did not know the reason why. Guan Jin heaved a deep breath of air before flipping the other person over. It was an almost identical death. It felt as though the both of them were on their way to start on the night watch when they met with bad luck and were killed on the spot without any chance of reacting at all. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze and pondered for a moment. Suddenly he walked to a house at the side and kicked the door open before looking around inside. The people inside were already dead. Regardless of gender or age, most of them died in slumber in an almost identical manner as the two outside. By the time Su Zimo returned to the street, Lung Ro and the others came forth from the other houses with a grim expression. Their hearts were filled with lingering fear. Everyone's dead. Little Fatty gulped. Even though the 5 of them were cultivators and there were even 4 Foundation establishment cultivators, none of them had come across anything as such. Furthermore, if they hadn't guessed wrongly, everyone in the ancient city should have most likely met with the same fates. A general picture formed in Su Zimo's mind. In the previous night, Linfeng City was peaceful and serene as ever with most people in the ancient city asleep. As the night watchmen patrolled, bad luck descended upon them. No one was spared from it. Most people must have died in their sleep. There were at least 100,000 people residing in the city. Overnight all of them perished. Lu Yangrong remarked grimly, "It must be done by a fiend cultivator." Yes, fiend cultivators are ruthless and unscrupulous. It's clear that their deaths were not committed by anyone on the orthodox path. Guan Jin nodded in agreement. Suddenly Su Zimo asked, "The disciple who discovered the spirit mine near here. What did he mention in his message?" Little Fatty replied, "Nothing much. He merely mentioned discovering a spirit mine at the northern outskirts of Linfeng City. Mining had already begun and he could be done in about 2 days. That junior brother mentioned discovering some cultivators near to the spirit mine and he was worried that they might covet it. That's why he requested for the sect to send some Foundation establishment cultivators as reinforcements." After he replied, Little Fatty suddenly realized and asked with widened eyes, "Bro, are you going to say that the murderer of this ancient city's tragedy is after our sect's spirit mine?" "It's very likely." Su Zimo nodded. Something as such happened right after a spirit mine was discovered nearby Linfeng City. It's too coincidental. What should we do then? Should we still head to the spirit mine? Little Fatty asked. Su Zimo replied grimly, "Relay a message to the sect first telling them that a situation had arisen. You guys have expended quite a bit of spirit chi traveling here. We should recuperate before checking out the spirit mine. Junior brother Su, you're too weak. If you're afraid, you don't have to follow us." Before Su Zimo could finish, he was interrupted by Lu Yangrong's cold scoff. Guan Jin eyed Su Zimo in disdain and continued indifferently, "Junior brother Su, since you're so worried, why don't you hurry back? I've already advised you not to follow us, Fufu." Su Zimo frowned. Lung Ro suddenly said, "I agree with junior brother Su's suggestion." As she said that, she retrieved a paper crane from her storage bag and wrote a few lines of words using spirit chi. Releasing the paper crane, it flew to the skies and disappeared in the blink of an eye. When he saw that, Lu Yangrong comforted her. "Junior sister Lung, don't worry. There won't be any cultivator within the great Zhou dynasty stupid enough to covet Ethereal Peak's spirit mine." "That's right," Guanjin analyzed calmly. "It's just an inferior-grade spirit mine containing mostly inferior-grade spirit stones that Foundation establishment cultivators won't be interested in. Even if anyone wanted the spirit mine, they would merely be Qi refinement warriors. There's nothing to be afraid of." The spirit Qi contained by inferior-grade spirit stones was not efficient in helping Foundation establishment cultivators. If Foundation establishment cultivators wanted to raise their cultivation realms, they would require middle-grade spirit stones. At Golden Core Realm, they would require superior-grade or even supreme-grade spirit stones. Although what the both of them said was logical, Su Zimo felt that things were not as simple. "Let's head to the spirit mine straight and check things out. Everything will be clear by then." Lu Yangrong waved and summoned his flying sword, leading the way. Guanjin followed closely behind. Carrying Su Zimo and the spirit tiger, Little Crane chased after them. Before long, all 5 of them arrived at the spirit mine. When they approached the pitch-dark entrance of the spirit mine, Lu Yangrong paused in his track and turned around. "I'll take the front with junior brother Guan. Because junior brother Su is the weakest, he'll stand in the middle. Junior sister Lung and little Fatty will take the back." No one had any objections to that arrangement. The entrance was narrow, so Little Crane and the spirit tiger could not enter. They could only stand guard outside. Su Zimo could tell that even though Lu Yangrong seemed indifferent previously, he had now become more cautious. Summoning his flying sword, Lu Yangrong held it in front of his chest. With 2 shining spirit patterns, it was a middle-grade flying sword. The 5 of them ventured deep into the spirit mine. They did not walk far when a strange sound echoed from ahead. It was as though a large group of things were flying over and they could only see it vaguely through red flashes. Taking a closer look, Lu Yangrong realized that it was a group of black crows with a strange red glow in their eyes. "Kneel down and let them pass." Lu Yangrong bent down and everyone else followed suit. The crows with bloodshot eyes sped above their heads without stopping. Heaving a sigh of relief, Lu Yangrong shrugged his shoulders. Pretending to be relaxed, he turned back and smiled. Puny beasts are common in places like this spirit mine. By ignoring them, we're even conserving spirit Qi. Suddenly, Su Zimo's senses were alarmed as he hollered, "Watch out!" Swash! A sword beam flashed at an extremely fast speed and arrived before them in the blink of an eye. Right now, everyone was at their most relaxed after those crows with bloodshot eyes had just passed. By the time Lu Yangrong heard Su Zimo's warning, it was too late. Chapter 143 Middle Grade Spirit Mine. Chapter 143, Middle Grade Spirit Mine. Poof! With a crisp sound, a bloody flash appeared. Lu Yangrong had just turned around when his head was pierced by a flying sword and he died on the spot. The flying sword continued its momentum and continued to stab at the people behind. Su Zimo was the first to be targeted. Su Zimo's spirit perception had long alerted him to it as he instantly drew his cold moon saber and slashed against the incoming flying sword, knocking it away. The speed of that attack was way too fast to be from a Qi refinement warrior. If Su Zimo wanted to defend using flying swords, he would have to use his sword formation. However, it would take too long to set up and he wouldn't be able to deal with the situation on hand. Lu Yangrong's blood splattered all over Su Zimo and Guanjin. Apart from Su Zimo, the rest were stunned and their eyes were filled with shock. Even with Lung Ro's personality, she still looked somewhat flustered at the moment. None of them could imagine how someone who had just been laughing and talking to them a moment ago had turned into a corpse in the blink of an eye. Swash! Swash! 2 more flashes of light appeared, targeting Su Zimo and Guanjin. Standing where he was in a dazed manner, Guanjin did not manage to shatter the protective talisman in his hands right away. Su Zimo extended his palm and yanked Guanjin back, hollering, "Hurry, retreat!" Clang! Clang! Flipping his hands, Su Zimo slashed twice and the 2 incoming flying swords fell to the ground. The 2 swords carried quite a bit of power in them. Their attacker was early-stage Foundation establishment at least. The change in circumstances had rendered Lu Yangrong and Guanjin's earlier predictions invalid. Within the spirit mine, there were at least 3 Foundation establishment cultivators. Furthermore, all 3 of them did not care if they were going against Ethereal Peak. Every single attack of theirs was lethal, showing no mercy at all. Finally, Guanjin and the others snapped out of their stupor. Shattering his protection talisman, a light barrier appeared around Guanjin's surroundings. Lung Ro and Little Fatty then sped towards the exit. Clothes could be heard fluttering from the depths of the mine, and by the sound of it, there were quite a number of people. When the people inside saw that their flying swords could not kill Su Zimo and the rest, they gave chase outside. As Su Zimo retreated, he drew out a blood-colored bow. Before the 5 peaks face-off, Su Zimo had already refined the Cold Moon Saber and Sanguine Crystal Bow into inferior-grade spirit weapons. In the blink of an eye, 3 arrows were loaded. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The sound of arrows piercing through the air echoed as 3 flashes of light tore through the darkness of the mine. Ah! Ah! 2 shrieks could be heard while the 3rd arrow was blocked. Be careful, everyone! Someone yelled from the depths of the mine. Within that narrow mine, there was not much space for cultivators to dodge, and as such, Su Zimo's arrows dealt quite a bit of damage. Running with all their might, Su Zimo and the rest got out before long. Outside, all of them were rattled. The blood-eyed crows that flew by them earlier on were now surrounding and pecking at Little Crane and the spirit tiger. Because it was a spirit demon after all, Little Crane could defend itself against the attacks of the blood-eyed crows. However, the spirit tiger sustained a lot of injuries because it could not fly. Howling on the spot, it was trying to defend itself desperately. Frost wind. When Lung Ro saw that, she conjured hand seals and hollered, pointing towards the skies. A cold gust of wind appeared out of nowhere and swept through the blood-eyed crows. Instantly, a number of them were frozen and fell to the ground, shattering to their deaths. That was the power of spirit arts. Thanks to Lung Ro's assistance, Little Crane broke out of the encirclement and panted slightly, looking somewhat fearful. Residing in the sect most of the time, it had never seen such a bloody scene. Ride on Little Crane and leave this place for now. Su Zimo ordered swiftly. Ha 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 ha. Right then, a haughty laughter came from deep within the cave. A group of people came forth. The leader, who was donned in gray robes, declared, "None of you will leave today. Stay here." Late-stage foundation establishment. Little Fatty's pupils constricted as he exclaimed. The gray-robed cultivator who spoke was at late-stage foundation establishment. Among them, Lu Yangrong, who was at mid-stage foundation establishment, had already died within the spirit mine. Not only that, a steady stream of cultivators continued out of the mine. At a glance, there were more than 30 people. However, what was terrifying was that all 30-odd of them were foundation establishment cultivators. Other than the gray-robed late-stage foundation establishment, there were 9 others at mid-stage and the rest were all at early stage. There wasn't a single Qi refinement warrior. It's over. Guanjin looked at the 30-odd foundation establishment cultivators that surrounded them, and despair gushed into his heart, draining all color from his face. Little Fatty wielded his gigantic axe in one hand and a flying sword in the other, looking nervous. Lung Ro's sword hovered in front of her. Even though she looked cold as usual, her palms were covered in sweat. Of the 4 people present, Su Zimo was the only composed one as he surveyed his surroundings. "We're cultivators of Ethereal Peak. Were you guys?" Guanjin took a deep breath before questioning sternly. "Fu-fu." The gray-robed leader chuckled softly. His eyes were filled with mockery as he raised his brows. "Ethereal Peak? Big fuck. Yesterday, I just slaughtered an Ethereal Peak disciple who doesn't know what's good for him." Indeed, the messenger disciple had already perished. Back when Lu Yangrong died in the mine, Su Zimo had already sensed that today's events would not be easy to resolve. Still bearing a sliver of hope, Guanjin tried to first show weakness. "Fellow Taoist, what you want is the spirit mine before us. Alright, Ethereal Peak will give up on it then. There's no need for you guys to kill us. Furthermore, isn't it just an inferior grade spirit mine? It's useless for us anyways, Fu-fu." Guanjin forced a laugh. "Inferior grade spirit mine?" The gray-robed cultivator scoffed coldly. "Let me correct you. This is a middle-grade spirit mine." Ah. Instantly, Guanjin's expression changed. He finally understood why there were so many foundation establishment cultivators. If it was a middle-grade spirit mine, it would definitely be attractive to foundation establishment cultivators. If they knew beforehand that this was a middle-grade spirit mine, Ethereal Peak would have sent out the strongest of inner sect disciples or even have legacy disciples lead the team. Su Zimo remained silent and watched coldly. Carefully, he noticed that the 30-odd Foundation establishment cultivators before him were all dressed differently and did not have any identification badges. They were clearly all itinerant cultivators. What was it that gathered all these itinerant cultivators here to snatch this spirit mine? This gray-robed cultivator before them was not enough of a reason for this. Even though a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator is strong, he's not compelling enough a reason for others to join him at the risk of offending Ethereal Peak. Guanjin forced himself to be calm and said grimly, "Fellow Taoists, to be honest, we've already relayed a message back to the sect. Before long, reinforcements will come. Fufu, by then you'll all be dead." Before Guanjin could complete his sentence, the gray-robed cultivator interrupted him. Scoffing coldly, he continued, "Besides, we would have left long ago by the time your reinforcements arrive." Ha ha ha. The surrounding Foundation establishment cultivators roared with laughter. Watching Guanjin's expression carefully, a strange glint appeared in the gray-robed cultivator's eyes as he smiled. "Fellow Taoist, haven't you noticed anything wrong in your body?" Chapter 144, We Can Only Kill Them All. Chapter 144, We Can Only Kill Them All. When he heard that, Guanjin's expression changed starkly as his body began to shudder. Su Zimo glanced sideways and saw that Guanjin's face was drying at a visible speed. Wrinkles started appearing as if all his blood would be forcibly drawn away by an invisible force at the next moment. Ah! Guanjin roared and tried his best to release spirit energy, but to no avail. He turned and looked toward Su Zimo and the others as panic filled his eyes. His pupils had turned gray and dull. It was an identical situation to those mortals who had died in Linfeng City. Cuckoo. Stretching his arm, Guanjin seemed as though he wanted to say something, but a strange sound came from the depths of his throat. Little Fatty was so scared that he jumped back instinctively. No one had attacked Guanjin, but in the blink of an eye, he had become like this. It didn't seem like he was going to survive. It was way too creepy. Chills ran down Little Fatty's spine as he panted heavily to calm himself down. Su Zimo furrowed his brows slightly. He looked carefully and noticed that there were faint green spots on the skin of Guanjin's palm that exuded an evil aura. Back in Linfeng City, that hand of Guanjin had come into contact with the dead night watchman. If that was all it took for a Foundation establishment cultivator to die, it was quite a terrifying method. They might be the next ones if they were careless. The surrounding Foundation establishment cultivators looked at everything unfold calmly, as though this was an expected outcome. Even though Lung Ro was always cold, she could not help but feel bad looking at Guanjin's helpless gaze. Retrieving a couple of elixirs from her storage bag, she wanted to feed them to Guanjin. She did not know what had happened to Guanjin. However, they were fellow disciples after all, and she couldn't just leave him in the lurch. Just as Lung Ro was about to step forward, someone grabbed her arm and yanked her back. "Don't go." Su Zimo's voice rang in her ears. With a thud, Guanjin fell to the ground, no longer breathing. Lung Ro froze on the spot. A ghastly green ball of light floated out of Guanjin's body and flew into the depths of the spirit mine. A cold glint flashed across Su Zimo's eyes as he lamented internally, "There should be someone else in the depths of the spirit mine. That person is the true murderer behind Linfeng City's tragedy." "He he he," the gray-robed cultivator said with a strange smile. "Oh, you have quite the tender heart for women. Beauty, if this punk hadn't pulled you back, you would have been dead by now." Lung Ro's heart jolted. Even though her cultivation was higher than Su Zimo, she had not been through any life-and-death situations. As such, she could not but lose her cool looking at the tragic death of her two senior brothers. Upon realizing this, Lung Ro looked at Su Zimo gratefully. Stroking his chin, the gray-robed cultivator said with a perverted look, "But that's good too. It'd be such a pity for a beauty like you to die here. Hey, I happen to be in need of a maidservant to warm my bed. You look pretty suitable for it." Ha ha ha. The surrounding Foundation establishment cultivators burst out in laughter. Swish. Right then, a gust of wind came from the entrance of the spirit mine as another batch of blood-eyed crows swarmed out like flying locusts. In the blink of an eye, they covered half the skies above everyone's heads. Little Fatty felt his scalp tingle as he gulped and asked softly, "Bro, what should we do?" Lung Ro looked toward Su Zimo. At this moment, the both of them had already subconsciously took Su Zimo as their pillar of support. They had even forgotten that their cultivations were higher than his. There's no other way. Su Zimo shook his head and remarked indifferently, we can only kill them all. Lung Ro and Little Fatty's eyes dimmed. Lung Ro sighed in her heart, they are all Foundation Establishment cultivators. Apart from the 9 mid-stages, there's even a late-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator. Su Zimo is only a Qi refinement warrior. What can he do? Be it Lung Ro or Little Fatty, both thought that Su Zimo had only said that casually because he knew he was about to die. Biting her lips gently, Lung Ro said in a low voice, in a while, I'll use my talismans to try and block as many people as possible. Find a chance to get out by riding on Little Crane. Little Crane looked up at the blood-eyed crows that filled the skies. Chirping, it flapped its wings ready to strike at any moment. Even though the blood-eyed crows weren't strong, they had the advantage in numbers. If they were to swarm Little Crane, it wouldn't be able to unleash its full strength. On the ground, the spirit tiger was of no help at all. Right then, Su Zimo suddenly drew his sanguine crystal bow from the storage bag and loaded arrows. His entire action was fluid like water, as though he had rehearsed for it countless times. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 arrows were shot towards the crowd and appeared before them in the blink of an eye. Initially, the 30-odd Foundation Establishment cultivators wanted to make fun of them. Most of their attention was on the 2 Foundation Establishment cultivators in the group, Lung Ro and Little Fatty. None of them expected that the Qi refinement warrior was the first to strike. It was completely unintentional. 3 precise arrows tore through the throats of 3 early-stage Foundation Establishment cultivators, causing blood to spurt out. The 3 of them were confused. Even in their final moments, they could not believe that they had just died under the bow of a Qi refinement warrior. It's him? Someone from the crowd exclaimed. Back in the spirit mine, Su Zimo killed 2 people using his bow and arrows. As such, the Foundation Establishment cultivators recognized him instantly. Swash, swash, swash. 30-odd Foundation Establishment cultivators summoned their flying swords at the same time, shining sinisterly with their spirit lights. Su Zimo shouted softly, don't just stand there, strike. Lung Ro and Little Fatty summoned their flying swords and talismans hurriedly, firing them towards the crowd. The light of the talismans burst forth as all sorts of spirit arts collided in reverberating booms. Caw-caw. Little Crane chirped and soared to the skies, charging to fight at the blood-eyed crows. Little Fatty howled as he charged at an early-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator with his gigantic axe. He wanted to make use of his melee combat strength and kill the latter on the spot. However, he was faced with too many opponents as flying swords blocked his path continuously. With no way to advance, Little Fatty found himself encircled in the blink of an eye and was forced to defend. The gray-robed cultivator did not move, merely watching coldly from the sidelines with hands behind his back. This battle was in the bag for sure. There was no need for him to make a move. On the other side, Su Zimo had already kept his sanguine crystal bow. Even though arrows were sharp, it was difficult to continuously hit targets when the Foundation Establishment cultivators were ready for it. 6 flying swords hovered in front of his chest and sped through the voids, leaving sword scars in the air. Buzz. A gigantic hexagonal formation pattern shone with a bedazzling, bright light. In a swift move, Su Zimo had already set up the hexagonal sword formation. Making use of the tripartite sword formation was of no use given the current circumstances. Sword formation. The gray-robed cultivator's expression changed. A look of surprise flashed past his eyes as he murmured, that Qi refinement warrior's a sword formation master? An early-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator had been targeting Su Zimo from the start. Secretly, he summoned his flying sword and sent it flying to the back of Su Zimo's head. Just as the flying sword was about to strike Su Zimo's head, the latter suddenly dodged from the spot in a swift and agile manner. The person's expression changed. Right as he was about to change the course of his flying sword to continue chasing after Su Zimo, a gigantic hexagonal star sword formation descended, crashing upon him. Poof! A sanguine light flashed. The person was split into 2 by the hexagonal sword formation. Chapter 145, The Power of Lightning Arts. Chapter 145, The Power of Lightning Arts. That Foundation Establishment cultivator had all sorts of tricks up his sleeves. Before he was able to use any of them, he was slashed down by Su Zimo's sword formation. Sending forth waves of sword chi, the hexagonal sword formation rebounded multiple flying swords and broke Little Fatty out of his predicament. In just a short while there was already a wound on Little Fatty's body. "It's fine, my skin is thick. Bro, don't worry about me," Little Fatty yelled as he charged forth without even turning back. Lung Ro had indeed displayed the strength as a disciple of a major sect as well. Even though she did not cultivate any secret skills of the sect, she was able to defend against the encirclement of 9 mid-stage Foundation Establishment cultivators using just her talismans. But of course, it was clear that the 9 of them had not exerted their full strength too. They were merely playing a cat-and-mouse game, taunting Lung Ro with lewd remarks while attacking. Unmoved in the slightest bit, Lung Ro was not in any danger for now. On the other side, a dozen or more Foundation Establishment cultivators had shifted their attention towards Su Zimo. They surrounded him with all their might as flying swords tore through the voids while spirit arts exploded everywhere. No matter how strong the hexagonal sword formation was, it was unable to withstand the power of so many Foundation Establishment cultivators. In the blink of an eye, it was on the verge of collapse. Haha. One of the Foundation Establishment cultivators burst out in laughter. "I want to see how long a mere chi refinement warrior like you can last." Roar. Before he could stop laughing, a black shadow appeared beside him. It bit on that man's throat as blood gushed out. The spirit tiger had been waiting for an opportunity to attack, and as such, an early-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator's life was ended. Even though it was only a spirit beast, if it closed in on Foundation Establishment cultivators, they wouldn't stand much of a chance. That was also the reason why Dai Yu had once told Su Zimo that demon cultivators are the best at killing opponents through level gaps. "Beast, how dare you behave so insolently?" A few of the Foundation Establishment cultivators cursed angrily. Invoking spirit arts, the spirit chi in the surroundings surged violently towards the spirit tiger. With the spirit tiger's current strength, it was unable to defend against the power of spirit arts at all. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze and dodged a few incoming flying swords. Shifting the hexagonal sword formation, he blocked it in front of the spirit tiger and defended against a few types of spirit arts. Bam! There was a deafening sound. The spirit arts dispersed and Su Zimo's hexagonal sword formation could no longer hold out as well. Struggling to form a proper pattern, all 6 swords fell to the ground and dimmed. Quick-witted, the spirit tiger seized the opportunity to hide behind Su Zimo instantly and glared fiercely at the dozens of Foundation Establishment cultivators on the other end. "Kid, the spirit chi within you should be almost depleted by now, right?" An early-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator scoffed coldly. Even though the battle between both parties had been short, Su Zimo had blocked too many flying swords. He had expended a lot of spirit chi and was indeed running short. "Let's see how you can continue to be arrogant." Die. One of the Foundation Establishment cultivators conjured hand seals and gestured towards Su Zimo. Instantly, a fireball the size of a fist shot out. Even while it was traveling, the air was already crackling from the heat. Su Zimo's eyes lit up as he suddenly reached out and grabbed the fireball. "You must be courting death." When the Foundation Establishment cultivator saw Su Zimo receiving the spirit art with his bare hands, he could not help but scoff internally. Channeling his blood, a flash of dense lightning appeared in Su Zimo's palm. What is that? Power of thunder. Many of the Foundation Establishment cultivators cried out in alarm as their pupils constricted. Piak. The fireball was crushed by Su Zimo's palm as the spirit chi within it dissipated into emptiness. Upon seeing that, the cultivators' expressions changed drastically. Even the gray-robed cultivator frowned in disbelief as he muttered confusedly, "Thunder art? Is he not actually a chi refinement warrior, but a Foundation Establishment cultivator?" Activating the spirit-peering art, he scanned Su Zimo once more. No, it shows him to be at level 9 chi condensation. Could he have cultivated some sort of technique to conceal his cultivation realm? No, that's not right either. The gray-robed cultivator shook his head. How is there no fluctuation in spirit chi when he released that thunder art? He would have never imagined that the source of power for Su Zimo's thunder art came from the latter's blood. Even though Su Zimo's spirit chi was indeed almost withered, the power of lightning in his blood was still present. Caw-caw. At the moment, little crane who was up in the skies was met with danger. Its body was already severely wounded by the blood-eyed crows as it shrieked anxiously. Even though Senior Crane did not mention it explicitly, Su Zimo knew that the reason why Little Crane could join him was due to Senior Crane's trust in him. Now that Little Crane was in danger, Su Zimo unleashed his power of blood without second thoughts. Instantly, his body echoed out with reverberating sounds of waves gushing. Under everyone's watchful gazes, Su Zimo's figure suddenly expanded. His body swelled and burst through his green clothes, filled with crackling electricity from head to toe. It was as though Su Zimo was possessed by a god of thunder as murderous intent condensed in his eyes terrifyingly. What? Suddenly, the gray-robed cultivator's expression changed. He finally realized that something was amiss. Pointing a finger into the skies, Su Zimo's eyes exuded a wrathful killing intent as he hollered, "Instant thunder!" Snap! A stark thunderbolt boomed out. An extremely intense bolt of thunder struck the group of blood-eyed crow, extending like a python exuding a bedazzling shine. The blood-eyed crows were instantly electrocuted to death and fell from the skies like a shower of black rain. Many of the Foundation establishment cultivators present were shocked by that deafening sound of thunder. Even the 9 Foundation establishment cultivators that were surrounding Lung Ro stopped instinctively. That gave Lung Ro an opportunity to take a breather. Covered in sweat, her spirit chi was almost depleted as well. Little Fatty seized the chance to kill an early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator before him. Swinging his gigantic axe, he cleaved the man into two as blood splattered all over him. The power of Thunder Arts was so great that it nearly wiped out all the blood-eyed crows in the skies. Little Crane's spirit was invigorated instantly. The remaining blood-eyed crows were of no threat to it. At the moment, Su Zimo whisked out a saber from his storage bag that shimmered with a cold glint. His eyes flashed icily as he strode forth, smiling to the Foundation establishment cultivators. The fight has only just begun. That single step of his closed a gap of 20 feet and he appeared before the many Foundation establishment cultivators in the blink of an eye. Poof! Poof! Su Zimo slashed out in reverse. The two of them only felt a blur before their eyes. Before they could even react, both heads were lopped into the skies with blood spraying everywhere. Ah! The remaining Foundation establishment cultivators were frightened to death as they exclaimed and stumbled back instinctively. Do you think you can run? Su Zimo chased after them with his saber like a tiger making its way through a flock of sheep. Cleaving left and right, flashes of blood shone out continuously. Both Lung Ro and Little Fatty were dumbfounded. Against Su Zimo, early-stage Foundation establishment cultivators were like fish on a chopping board. They could not retaliate at all. It didn't matter whether they summoned flying swords, talismans or even conjured spirit arts. They were all killed by a single flash of Su Zimo. At lesser mastery of the marrow cleansing section, Su Zimo's power was enough to slay early-stage Foundation establishment cultivators. And that was even before he infused the Thunder Marrow Cleansing Sutra into his marrow within Thunderclap Valley. This was a complete crushing through sheer brute strength without requiring any technique. Even the spirit arts of early-stage Foundation establishment cultivators was not enough to deal with Su Zimo after unleashing his power of blood. Chapter 146, Predicament. Chapter 146, Predicament. At the sight of Su Zimo's unstoppable onslaught, the gray-robed cultivator could no longer sit and wait. With a holler, he burst forth with the might of a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator and summoned a middle-grade flying sword, shooting it towards Su Zimo's back. The two spirit patterns on the sword shone with a mysterious glow, emitting a ghastly aura. It was an extremely swift attack. If it were Lung Ro or Little Fatty, they wouldn't have been able to escape unscathed. On the other hand, Su Zimo did not even have to turn back despite having just cleaved someone else apart. Standing on the spot, he made a small sidestep and dodged that fatal attack. It was as though he had eyes at the back of his head. The expression of the gray-robed cultivator was unchanged when he saw that, unsurprised in the slightest bit. He could already tell that Su Zimo was a body-tempered cultivator and was very agile. It was not realistic for him to capture this person within a few moves. Everyone back down. Try to keep your distance as much as possible. The gray-robed cultivator yelled as he manipulated his flying sword to chase after Su Zimo. If not, ride on your flying swords in the air. Just try your best to not let this person get close to you. Suddenly Su Zimo laughed. Striding forward, he exerted strength in his legs and burst forth with divine steed fleeting, leaving a series of afterimages behind him. Mystify. Suddenly, Su Zimo reached out and a ball of lightning appeared in his palms, erupting before everyone's eyes in a blinding manner as thunder rumbled and deafened everyone. Instant Thunder and Mystify were thunder arts of the Void Thunder Manual. Instant Thunder was a killing technique. It was powerful and had a large area of effect. As for Mystify, it was a supplementary spirit art that had almost no lethality. By making use of the power of Thunder's explosiveness, its aim was to confuse the five senses of the opponents and to mainly block their vision and hearing. The many Foundation establishment cultivators felt their visions blur as their ears rang incessantly with echoes. The next moment, Su Zimo was already before them. In terms of melee combat, no one was a match for Su Zimo as blood splattered endlessly. In the blink of an eye, countless of the Foundation establishment cultivators on the other end were dead on the spot. By now, all the early-stage Foundation establishment cultivators were dead. Right then, Lung Ro, who was in midair, shrieked as the protection talisman around her exploded. Immediately after, she was slammed heavily on the abdomen by a palm of spirit energy. Sent flying, she spat out a mouthful of blood and looked even paler. Little Fatty's shoulder was also pierced by a flying sword as he fell to the ground and broke out in cold sweat. The gray-robed cultivator was the one who had struck personally. Even though he did not take their lives, it was clear that Lung Ro and Little Fatty were no longer able to fight anymore. He was intelligent and quick to notice that the strength of early-stage Foundation establishment cultivators was no longer able to deal with Su Zimo. As such, he chose to get rid of Little Fatty and Lung Ro first. With that, the gray-robed cultivator could then reset the situation and group up with the 9 mid-stage Foundation establishment cultivators to fight Su Zimo together. Standing in front of Little Fatty and Lung Ro, Su Zimo held his saber before his chest and his eyes shone with a sharp killing intent. He was not fearful in the slightest bit against the 10 Foundation establishment cultivators on the other end. As she looked at Su Zimo's back view, Lung Ro was filled with mixed emotions. This mission was undertaken by her Little Fatty, Lu Yangrong and Guanjin. Su Zimo did not have the rights to join. But if Su Zimo wasn't here, she would have already been dead along with Little Fatty. The same emotions were going through Little Fatty's mind. His initial plan was to invite Su Zimo out to relax his mind, but he did not expect that they would have encountered such an incident. Both senior brothers had died tragically and now he and Lung Ro were severely injured and could not offer any help. Everyone, make use of your various flying sword and talisman methods to take down this person. Find an opening to invoke your spirit arts and injure him severely. The gray-robed cultivator was extremely decisive as he swiftly delegated the remaining 9 mid-stage Foundation establishment cultivators in various directions to separate out. Swash, swash, swash. Flying swords tore through the air alongside many talismans. Narrowing his gaze, Su Zimo gripped the cold moon saber tightly and with a long howl, he swung his arms and blocked left and right. For the flying swords, talismans and even spirit arts used by mid-stage Foundation establishment cultivators, Su Zimo could deal with them head-on using his power of blood without losing out. However, the gray-robed cultivator was at late-stage Foundation establishment. Su Zimo's marrow cleansing section was only at a lesser mastery. Even with the Thunder Marrow Cleansing Sutra, he was no match against that guy. If it was just a one-on-one fight, he could make use of various techniques to close the distance between them so that he could take the gray-robed cultivator down with his saber. But now, the gray-robed cultivator had 9 other helpers and together, the 10 of them restrained Su Zimo on the spot. It was not that Su Zimo was unable to break through the encirclement. However, if he did, Lung Ro and Little Fatty behind him would be killed on the spot. Against Foundation establishment cultivators, the Spirit Tiger was no longer of much help. Clang, clang, clang. The sounds of the cold moon saber and flying swords clashing echoed out repeatedly as sparks flew. If one had not seen it personally, it would be hard to imagine that the 10 Foundation establishment cultivators were actually surrounding to fight a single level 9 Chi refinement warrior. Everyone hold steady. That punk must have cultivated some sort of secret body tempering technique to turn his body so powerful. Once we kill him, that secret technique will be ours. The gray-robed cultivator rallied once more. Invigorated, the remaining 9 mid-stage Foundation establishment cultivators were even more motivated in their attacks. Lung Ro and Little Fatty sat on the spot and could only see and hear the endless flashes of swords clashing and sparks flying. However, they had not sustained any more injuries. Su Zimo had blocked everything for them. During this period, Su Zimo had no choice but to fight head-on with the gray-robed cultivator. He suffered slightly and his teeth were sore while his blood was shaken. Little Fatty could tell that Su Zimo was in a predicament. He could not help but yell, "Bro, don't bother about us. Leave first." Lung Ro pursed her red lips without saying anything at all. She could naturally tell that if not for her and Little Fatty, even the 10 Foundation establishment cultivators on the other end may not be a match for Su Zimo. Ha ha ha. The gray-robed cultivator could not help but laugh when he saw that the outcome was almost decided. "Punk, let's see how long more you can last." The situation was clear. Su Zimo could only react. If he was careless, not only would he fail to protect Lung Ro and Little Fatty, he would get injured as well. As time passed, Su Zimo's physical strength gradually declined and it was only a matter of time before he lost. In reality, Su Zimo was extremely calm at the moment. He was constantly watching the fight between Little Crane and the blood-eyed crows up above. Thanks to the power of instant thunder, there were not many blood-eyed crows left. The remaining few were also being hunted down by Little Crane, barely able to pose any threat. Su Zimo needed Little Crane's help. Given the current circumstances, only Little Crane's strength was of help. Right as the gray-robed cultivator laughed, Little Crane finished off the last few blood-eyed crows and looked down, meeting with Su Zimo's clear eyes. Su Zimo nodded and Little Crane understood. When he channeled his blood earlier on, the green robe on Su Zimo's body was already torn apart, revealing a thin golden silk armor. Suddenly, Su Zimo took off the golden silk armor and tossed it on the ground. Chapter 147, Into the Spirit Mine Once More. Chapter 147, Into the Spirit Mine Once More. Everyone had seen the golden silk armor on Su Zimo's body but none of them thought much about it. Without any spirit patterns, it was merely a pseudo-spirit weapon. Now, the gray-robed cultivator found himself stunned momentarily when Su Zimo tossed the golden silk armor on the ground. He could not understand why Su Zimo would do that. But at the next moment, the gray-robed cultivator's pupils constricted in horror. After removing the golden silk armor, Su Zimo was like a completely different person. With a front dash, he slashed with the cold moon saber and blocked all the incoming flying swords before charging towards the gray-robed cultivator. It was too fast. In fact, he was at least twice as fast as before. A black shadow flashed past like a ghost. Almost in the blink of an eye, Su Zimo had arrived before the gray-robed cultivator. With a torrential killing intent, he slapped the head of the latter. Piak. The gray-robed cultivator's head ruptured as he fell back. Even till his death, he did not understand what happened. That golden silk armor was none other than the damaged Khanate mystic gold silk armor. Wearing it was akin to carrying a burden of 5 tons. Hence, Su Zimo had not displayed his true strength the entire time. Now that he removed the burden on his body, Su Zimo was much more relaxed as he burst forth with a massive speed boost, killing the gray-robed cultivator who was caught off guard. Right as the other 9 mid-stage Foundation establishment cultivators were about to attack, Little Crane had already seized the opportunity to descend and swoop Little Fatty, Lung Ro and the Spirit Tiger into the air with it. The coordination between the man and Crane was seamless. In the blink of an eye, the only people alive on the ground were Su Zimo and the 9 mid-stage Foundation establishment cultivators. Blood drained from their faces as they watched Su Zimo advance towards them step by step, fear filling their eyes. Before this, none of them would have thought that more than 30 Foundation establishment cultivators would be killed mostly by a level 9 Chi refinement warrior. Swash. Su Zimo disappeared on the spot, leaving only a flurry of afterimages. Saber flashes were accompanied by a scarlet light. In the blink of an eye, 3 more people died. 2 of them mounted their swords and wanted to flee. Squatting slightly, Su Zimo left 2 deep pits on the ground with a single boom. Leaping entirely into the air, his figure remained in midair as he slashed down the 2 Foundation establishment cultivators. There were now 4 remaining. Repelling 2 incoming flying swords, Su Zimo charged forward and banged against someone's chest, exerting all his might. That person's eyeballs popped out with blood spraying and his chest caved in. The sound of bones cracking could be heard and he died before falling to the ground. By then, Su Zimo had already left and had caught up with another person, letting out a saber flash. 2 more remaining. Realizing that they could not escape Su Zimo's pursuit, the both of them dashed towards the spirit mine's entrance. Su Zimo was hot on their tails. They were just about to reach the entrance when the ground trembled under Su Zimo's lunge. The slower person was ratified. His legs gave way as he staggered and fell to the ground. The other person ahead had already disappeared into the spirit mine. And no, it's none of my business. And none of this is my idea. It was him. The Foundation establishment cultivator on the ground stammered and tried to explain things incoherently, his face devoid of color. Who is he? Su Zimo interrogated with a cold gaze. I don't know. The person shook his head but looked towards the entrance of the spirit mine instinctively. There was a flash of fear in his eyes. Pondering for a short moment, Su Zimo continued asking, the person in the mine is the one who killed those people in Linfeng City, right? Why yes, the Foundation establishment cultivator nodded furiously. What's his cultivation realm? Right as the Foundation establishment cultivator was about to reply, green spots appeared on his face as he smiled at Su Zimo sinisterly. When he saw that smile, Su Zimo's hair stood on end. Without hesitation he retreated immediately. Bang. It was a dull explosion. The person who was alive just a few moments earlier exploded right in front of Su Zimo's eyes. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere as a ghastly green ball floated into the spirit mine. At the moment, Little Crane descended with Lung Ro and Little Fatty upon seeing that the fight was over. Junior brother Su, are you alright? Bro, are you alright? Both of them asked at almost the same time. A hint of panic flashed in Lung Ro's eyes but she returned to normalcy almost immediately. I am fine. Su Zimo nodded and replied, frowning in deep thoughts. After a moment, he fondled Little Crane's head and said, Stupid bird, send everyone back to the sect first. This place is not suitable for you guys to linger on. If you can meet with reinforcements from the sect on the way back, that would be for the best. Caw. Little Crane called for Su Zimo to hurry up so that they could leave together. You guys leave first. I'll go back later. Su Zimo shook his head and rejected. Bro, you're not thinking of entering the spirit mine again, are you? Little Fatty asked with eyes widened in disbelief. Su Zimo was silent. Both Lung Ro and Little Fatty exchanged solemn glances. Junior brother Su, let's head back together. Lung Ro said, the person within the spirit mine might have a powerful background and we don't know his strength. Moreover, his techniques are so sinister. There's no need for us to take this risk. Just let him have this spirit mine. That's right. Little Fatty added, furthermore we've already sent a message back to the sect and seniors will arrive soon. This spirit mine can still be ours. Bro, there's no need for you to take the risk personally. I have to go in and take a look. Su Zimo's gaze was firm as he said darkly, this is a middle-grade spirit mine, so that person shouldn't be a golden core. If he's a Foundation establishment cultivator, I will be able to escape safely even if I can't fight him. That person can't restrain me. There were some things that Su Zimo did not tell Little Fatty and Lung Ro. When he saw the tragedy of Linfeng City, Su Zimo's first thought was of Yen country's capital and his big brother, Su Hong. Mortals were absolutely helpless in the face of such power and could only be slaughtered. This person's descent upon Linfeng City a day ago had caused the entire city to perish. If he were to head to the capital of Yen country one day, his big brother and the others would definitely meet with the same ill fate. This was his last chance. If he were to wait for the sect seniors to arrive, this person may have already left by then. Su Zimo was worried that if he were to let this person off, he would regret it one day. Besides, this person was accountable for the loss of hundreds of thousands of lives in Linfeng City. Bro, Little Fatty was about to continue when Su Zimo interrupted him. You guys are injured. You don't have to follow me in. Lung Ro said, we'll wait for you outside then. 2 hours. After thinking for a while, Su Zimo replied, if I'm not out within 2 hours, leave this place immediately. After pausing momentarily, Su Zimo said to Little Crane as well, stupid bird, bring everyone with you further away. If you see any stranger approaching the mine, leave immediately. Do not turn back. Little Crane nodded hurriedly, flapping its wings with a worried expression. Picking up his flying swords from the ground, Su Zimo kept the mystic gold silk armor in his storage bag and pretended to smile casually. There's so many storage bags around, hurry and collect them all. We'll split the loot secretly back in the sect. Su Zimo said as he entered the entrance, disappearing into the deep and dark spirit mine. Chapter 148 Handsome Man. Chapter 148. Handsome Man. Su Zimo held his saber and walked through the dark mine, not daring to go too fast. After a long time he stopped in his tracks and his vision cleared up. The next moment, Su Zimo was met with a shocking scene. There were more than 10,000 strong men kneeling on the ground, forming circles after circles. In the middle of these men was a pile of spirit stones the size of a small mountain, emanating a rich scent of spirit chi. Those strong men were dressed in plain clothes and looked terrified. They were probably mortals who came to mine the spirit stones. On top of the pile sat an extremely handsome young man. His black hair swayed lightly by itself as he spread his arms slightly open with his eyes closed. Green streams of air floated out of the heads of the tens of thousands of men, entering the handsome man's body continuously. The men's cheeks were withering at a discernible pace and their eyes dimmed as though their blood and essence had been drained instantly. The Foundation establishment cultivator who had escaped first into the spirit mine laid collapsed at the feet of the handsome man, having turned into a dried corpse. This man was the true murderer behind Linfeng City's tragedy. Su Zimo scanned the person using his spirit-peering art. Perfected Foundation establishment. Su Zimo was secretly shocked. His current strength was not enough to even deal with a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator, let alone a perfected. If he wanted to kill this man he could not do it head-on, he could only rely on various techniques to close the gap. Even though the power of a perfected Foundation establishment cultivator was extremely strong, his body was definitely no match against Su Zimo's. That was Su Zimo's only chance. Suddenly, the handsome man opened his narrow eyes. They were a sinister shade of green. Oh, it's a chi refinement warrior? The handsome man's voice carried a hint of surprise. Taking a deep breath of air, he let out an intoxicated expression. Not bad, not bad. Your body's essence is richer than the tens of thousands of people in Linfeng City added together. Demon, hand over your life. Su Zimo scoffed coldly and leaped up, a crackling flash of lightning shining from his palm. Thunder Spear. A spear formed from lightning appeared out of nowhere and shot towards the handsome man. The handsome man exclaimed softly, Thunder Art? A mere chi refinement warrior is able to utilize spirit arts? Oh. As it approached, a flash of realization appeared in the handsome man's face as he smiled. I got it. The source of power for this thunder art doesn't come from your dantian. It's from your blood. It merely took him a single look to be able to speak of the secret within Su Zimo's blood. Against the incoming thunder spear, the handsome man smiled gently and flicked his finger, sending a green stream of light. The two attacks collided as the two different powers corroded one another, producing an ear-piercing sound. Thunder Spear was the strongest killing move within the Void Thunder manual. But now it was countered by a single flick of the handsome man. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged. By now he was already at the bottom of the spirit stones pile. With a single leap he sprinted up. Swoosh! The handsome man conjured seals with a single hand. His eyes glowed with green light as he pressed down. A gigantic and ghastly green palm descended from the sky, almost blocking Su Zimo's vision entirely. Not daring to fight him head-on, Su Zimo quickly retreated. Suddenly the palm shattered in midair, forming streams of green light that chased after Su Zimo like snakes filled with life. In terms of spirit arts, this handsome man was many times more brilliant than the 30-odd Foundation establishment cultivators. Su Zimo did not dare to clash head-on and merely continued to dodge. He ran circles around the pile of spirit stones as the snakes chased endlessly. By now, Su Zimo was already using all his strength, but he could not shake off the green snakes chasing after him. All of a sudden, he turned around and welcomed the incoming green snakes with a slash. Poof, poof, poof. The saber split 3 green snakes into 2 right away. However, the remaining snakes swarmed forward and coiled around his cold moon saber. That initially sharp blade turned blunt right away. Letting go of his saber in a sudden motion, Su Zimo strode forward with the plow heaven stride. Exploding with a monstrous force, he ascended the spirit stone's pile in 3 steps and arrived before the handsome man. Even without the cold moon saber, Su Zimo's melee combat strength was equally terrifying. There were way too many killing techniques within the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. Any single one of them was more than enough to kill the handsome man before him. Bam! Su Zimo slammed down with his palm as if he wanted to tear the world apart. Suddenly, a bone staff appeared in the handsome man's palm. Crystalline, it was made from white bones with a skull on top that exuded a nefarious aura. Chanting some weird sounds, the handsome man suddenly poked his bone staff against Su Zimo's palm. Bang! The power of the ground-rupturing palm shot off as the handsome man's body trembled. His palm cracked and the bone staff nearly slipped out of his hand. All of a sudden, the skull on the top of the staff opened its mouth. As though it was alive, ghastly light shone out of its sockets and it bit Su Zimo's wrist. Su Zimo's expression changed. The pain from his wrist was still bearable. However, Su Zimo could clearly feel his blood being drawn by an external force. If this carried on, it wouldn't be long before he ran out of blood and died like the people around him. Bang! Boom! Boom! Su Zimo gave a loud roar and channeled his blood with all his might, sending a reverberating sound of waves gushing from within his body. The power of blood churned furiously and burst, almost shattering the bone staff. The handsome man narrowed his gaze and channeled his spirit energy furiously as well, causing the bone staff to emit a ghastly light. The skull on top of the staff was still biting Su Zimo's wrist tightly, gulping blood by the mouthful. That initially white skull was gradually turning red. Excitement danced in the handsome man's eyes as he laughed loudly. What a pure power your blood contains. I really want to know how a chi refinement warrior such as yourself managed to cultivate such a strong bloodline. The two of them fought in melee range. Even though it sounded slowly, everything happened in an instant. Having lost the initiative, Su Zimo did not think further and grabbed the handsome man's head with his right hand. Even though there was no longer demonic chi in his blood, Su Zimo's palm was no different from the claws of a spirit demon. That single palm strike was more than enough to crush rocks into dust. The handsome man was in complete control of the situation. Without panicking at all, he conjured hand seals and hollered softly, "Blood curse." In front of the handsome man's chest, a ghastly green ball of light appeared. It revolved and expanded, separating the distance between Su Zimo and the handsome man. Su Zimo's right hand fell into the light ball. It was as if he was trapped in a quagmire and it was difficult to advance. He was completely restricted. Finally, Su Zimo's expression changed. At that moment, Su Zimo could clearly sense weakness coming from within his body. If this continued, his blood essence would be devoured within 10 minutes. Chapter 149 Blood Bone Palm. Chapter 149, Blood Bone Palm. If your bloodline was stronger, I wouldn't be able to hold you down today. What a pity. The handsome man smiled sinisterly. Su Zimo had also realized this. If he was at greater mastery of the marrow cleansing section, he would be able to kill a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator with ease. Coupled with the Thunder Marrow Cleansing Sutra, he could definitely match a perfected foundation establishment cultivator. The handsome man's bone staff might not even be able to bite through his flesh. At the moment, a sense of helplessness rose in Su Zimo's heart. With the bone staff biting his left wrist tightly, almost half of Su Zimo's body had gone numb and weak by now. On the other end, his right hand was covered by the ghastly green ball of light, rendering him incapable of moving. He could see the handsome man's face right behind the ball of light, but he did not have the strength to pierce it. Moreover, Su Zimo's right hand had started to corrode because of this strange power. His flesh was rotting with his skin peeled in a horrifying manner. Behind the light ball, the handsome man smiled smugly. Suddenly, the handsome man's smile froze as his eyes focused on something strange. Su Zimo's gaze also landed on the light ball between them. In that ghastly green light ball, the flesh on Su Zimo's right hand was gone entirely, revealing a crimson bone palm. His bones were crystal clear and its surface burned with a fine flame. It looked like the most beautiful treasure in this world. The bone palm's fingertip was as sharp as a knife. It did not look like the palm of a human. An extremely terrifying aura emanated as the ghastly green light ball shattered. In the face of that aura, the handsome man felt as small as an ant. For a moment, his heart even stopped beating. What is this? The handsome man's pupils constricted. At the same time, Su Zimo felt a new surge of energy gush into his body from his right hand. His blood felt as though it was burning and spewing flames. Kill? Su Zimo bellowed and reached for the handsome man's head with that blood-colored bone palm. The handsome man's expression changed drastically as he hurriedly moved the white bone staff in front of him to block the blood-bone palm. Piak. Su Zimo merely grabbed gently. The handsome man's staff was broken right away. Poof. The next moment, Su Zimo's palm had descended and the handsome man's head was crushed. A perfected foundation establishment cultivator had fallen. Su Zimo stood where he was and looked at his right hand in disbelief. The handsome man's bone staff was definitely as hard as a middle-grade spirit weapon. But, his right hand had managed to snap it with ease. Just what was that right hand of his? Su Zimo could clearly feel that the blood-bone palm was not his original palm. It gave off a horrifying aura that seemed as though it could destroy everything in the world. Suddenly something came to Su Zimo's mind. Back in Songlang Mountain Range, he had fought against many cultivators of Joyful Sect and his right hand was almost crippled at that time. After that, when Su Zimo woke up, his entire body was intact and there were no wounds. Daiyu must have attached this blood-bone palm back then. But what was the origin of this blood-bone palm? Why did it give him such a sense of trepidation? At this moment he finally found a clue to many of his previous doubts. The reason why he was able to cultivate a level 3 spirit fire right away must have something to do with this blood-bone palm. That was the reason why Su Zimo's right hand did not change when he turned into a demon previously. It was because his strength was not enough to trigger the blood-bone palm. Even if he did not know the secret behind the blood-bone palm, Su Zimo knew that many of his body's abnormalities were related to it. This was definitely one of the 3 gifts that Daiyu had left him. Looking around, Su Zimo did not find anyone else and he heaved a sigh of relief. The blood-bone palm was clearly not a human palm. If it was exposed, he would have no way of explaining himself out of this. Su Zimo put away the handsome man's storage bag and rummaged through it. He found a grade 2 muscle-enhancing elixir and swallowed it. Together with Su Zimo's already strong self-healing powers, a thin layer of flesh formed on his right palm before long. Even though he wasn't fully recovered, it was enough to hide away the blood-bone palm. Still worried, Su Zimo removed a piece of cloth and wrapped his right hand in it. He pondered for a moment and with a wave of his hand, all the middle-grade spirit stones were put into his storage bag. He had come here for the sake of spirit stones so he naturally wouldn't give any chances. Looking at the tens of thousands of mortals around him who had died in the kneeling position, Su Zimo sighed. A look of pity filled his eyes together with a rush of emotions. If he hadn't met Daiyu, he would have been no different from those mortals who could only be slaughtered by cultivators. Why? Why did those mortals not have spirit roots? Senior Crane once said that it was a person's fate whether or not they had spirit roots and nothing could change that. Without a spirit root, one would not be able to cultivate. The way these people before him met with their ends, was that their fate as well. Su Zimo felt indignant. He was indignant for the hundreds of thousands of innocent lives of Linfeng City, indignant for the tens of thousands of simple and plain men in front of him. If they could cultivate they might not have died today. He had Daiyu to defy the heavens and change his fate by planting a spirit root for him. But what about them? Who could change the fates of all those people? Ugh. Sighing once more, Su Zimo left the place. Outside, Little Crane and the others were hiding nearby, watching the spirit mine for any activity tensely. After almost 2 hours, a person exited from the mine. Lung Ro and the rest focused. It was Su Zimo. Little Crane carried Lung Ro, Little Fatty and the spirit tiger and hurriedly flew over with Little Fatty cheering in midair. How was it, bro? Are you alright? Little Fatty hopped down first and asked in concern. Su Zimo nodded. Lung Ro's gaze landed on Su Zimo's right hand and she asked softly, "Your hand?" "It's nothing. It's just a small injury." There was naturally no way Su Zimo would tell the truth. Right then, a stream of light suddenly sped over from afar. It was extremely fast and appeared before them in the blink of an eye. It was a gigantic spirit vessel. A picture of a mountain peak was etched onto the side of the spirit vessel. A group of golden cores stood on the deck of the spirit peak. The 5 people leading the group were none other than the 5 peak masters of Ethereal Peak. Leaping from the spirit vessel, the 5 peak masters surveyed the scene. Looking at the 30-odd corpses of Foundation establishment cultivators strewn all over the place, their eyes had a slight hint of shock. Su Zimo and the rest had not expected that Lung Ro's message would alarm the sect's golden cores. "Greetings, peak masters. Greetings, elders." Su Zimo and the other 2 bowed. Nodding their heads, the 5 peak masters asked about everything with solemn expressions. Little Fatty related the entire incident from the beginning to the end, how they realized the oddities in Linfeng City all the way to how Su Zimo entered the spirit mine alone. Towards the end, the disheveled old man glared at Su Zimo with a look of blame. "Alright, let's return to the sect first." At that moment when Shen came out of the spirit mine, waving his hand, he brought Su Zimo, Lung Ro, Little Fatty and the 2 beasts up the spirit vessel. Chapter 150 Foundation Establishment Meridian Unlocking. Chapter 150 Foundation Establishment Meridian Unlocking. Ethereal Main Peak, Ethereal Palace. The 5 peak masters brought Su Zimo, Lung Ro and Little Fatty here to relate everything about Linfeng City and the spirit mine to the sect master thoroughly. Su Zimo, Lung Ro and Little Fatty left. Sect master Ling Yun closed his eyes in deep thoughts before asking, "What do you guys think?" When Shen said, "For them to deploy such cruel methods. This should be the act of fiend cultivators. Sect master, we must not be careless." The other 4 peak masters nodded in agreement. Pass the order down. Before the sect competition, all disciples should head out as little as possible. If they have to head out, they must be accompanied by disciples of peak Foundation Establishment Cultivation or higher, and the groups must be 20 or larger. Ling Yun continued, "Arrange properly for Lu Yangrong and Guanjin's funerals. Also, Lung Ro and Little Fatty shall be rewarded with spirit stones and elixirs. As for Su Zimo," the disheveled old man said hurriedly, "Sect master, if not for that lad Lung Ro and Little Fatty aside, even Little Crane wouldn't have returned alive. We were there and the aftermath of the battle was intense. More than 30 Foundation Establishment cultivators died in the hands of that lad." "Impart him the Ethereal Foundation Establishment," Ling Yun replied. When he heard that, the disheveled old man's eyes lit up and he was overjoyed. He quickly bowed repeatedly and said, "That's for the best. I thank the sect master on behalf of that lad, Su Zimo." Ethereal Foundation Establishment was one of the 3 major secret skills of the sect. In Qi condensation realm, the standards for cultivation techniques were very low. Any technique could cultivate a sea of Qi. As long as one had a good spirit root, they would be able to advance to Foundation Establishment realm. However, the standards required of techniques will become much higher at Foundation Establishment. Foundation Establishment was divided into 4 levels: early, mid, late stages and perfected. At perfected Foundation Establishment, there's the method of meridian unlocking. Meridian unlocking referred unlocking of the 8 meridian channels with spirit energy. Every single unlocked meridian would raise the cultivator's strength. At perfected Foundation Establishment, the difference in strength between a cultivator with 8 unlocked meridians and another with a single unlocked meridian was like heaven and earth. Normally, if one could unlock 4 of the 8 meridians, they would already have a high chance of forming a golden core. With 5 unlocked meridians, the chance was even higher. If one could unlock all 8, they would definitely form a golden core. Even though it seems simple, it was actually extremely difficult. Many Foundation Establishment cultivators would never be able to open up 4 meridians in their entire lives. In the end, they could only force their core formation. Many of those will end up failing in the process and die. But, if one could cultivate a top-notch Foundation Establishment technique, their chances of unlocking their meridians would be much greater. Ethereal Foundation Establishment was that top-notch technique. Any cultivator of the secret skill would be able to unlock at least 4 meridian channels at perfected Foundation Establishment. Of course, in the history of the Great Zhou dynasty, there was also a Foundation Establishment cultivator who had managed to unlock all 8 meridians. The most recent Foundation Establishment cultivator who had managed to do it was that monster who walked out of Ethereal Peak 1,000 years ago. It was nearly impossible to unlock all 8 meridians. No Foundation Establishment cultivator would deliberately aim to unlock all 8 meridians, since theoretically, they could attempt for Golden Core Realm with just 4 unlocked meridians. But of course, it was undeniable that the more meridians were unlocked, the stronger one would be and the better the quality of the formed golden core. Therefore there were some inner sect cultivators who were even in their 40s but they were still at perfected foundation establishment. They wanted to unlock as many meridians as possible and were in no hurry to form a core. However, the lifespan of foundation establishment cultivators was only slightly more than 100 years. Once anyone passes 50 years old, their energy, chi and spirit would all diminish. If they weren't able to unlock their meridians in the past, it would be even tougher in the future. Therefore, most people would remain at perfected foundation establishment to 50 years old at most. No matter how many meridians were unlocked by then, they would attempt to form a core. The most amazing thing about ethereal foundation establishment was that it could ensure at least 4 unlocked meridians for a cultivator. It meant that one would cross half the threshold required for core formation. Furthermore, with that foundation, cultivators with extremely strong endowments would be able to unlock even more meridians. After all, Ethereal Peak had once produced a cultivator with 8 unlocked meridians who was unparalleled in the northern Tianhuang region among all foundation establishment cultivators. As the 5 peak masters were about to leave the ethereal palace, Sect Master Ling Yun added, "By the way, don't tell anyone about this incident." Stunned for a moment, the 5 peak masters nodded in agreement. After the 5 of them left, a red-headed beauty appeared within the palace. Ling Yun stood up and cupped his fists, asking darkly, "Senior, have you heard of any similar demonic techniques that enables one to suck another cultivator's essence and blood?" The red-headed beauty had a grim look as she shook her head. Ling Yun frowned and murmured, "Could it be one of the 7 fiend sects? If he was someone from those sects, this would be sticky for Ethereal Sect to handle. If we don't handle it well, our sect might be destroyed." "It's not someone from a fiend sect." The red-headed beauty shook her head and sounded certain. Ling Yun's expression softened. He had just sighed a heave of relief when the red-headed beauty continued, "However, that person's background is probably not any weaker than the 7 fiend sections. It might even be comparable." "Could it be?" As though he recalled something, Ling Yun's pupils constricted and he did not continue. The red-headed beauty nodded. Ghastly green eyes. He should have come from Tianhuang's forbidden grounds. Pust. Ling Yun drew a breath of cold air and was shocked. After a long while, he asked, "Why are living beings of the forbidden grounds out and about?" "I don't know either." The red-headed beauty sighed. "Chaos has started to descend upon Tianhuang mainland." "Senior, your lifespan?" Ling Yun was extremely worried and could not help but ask. "I can't hold on for much longer. 100 years more at most." The red-headed beauty said, "All these years, the other 4 major sects have all been coveting Ethereal Sect. Even some of the minor sects are tempted to take action. When I die, Ethereal Sect will be on the brink of life and death too. If no one is able to advance to Void Reversion Realm within this 100 years and become a Tao being, Ethereal Peak would probably reach its end." "Senior." Suddenly, Ling Yun collapsed to the ground on his knees with a feeling of guilt. He looked at the red-headed beauty silently with a mournful expression. The crane was the spirit beast of Ethereal Peak's founder master and had guarded the sect for several thousands of years. It possessed strength equivalent to that of a Tao being and was the only existence in the sect at Void Reversion Realm. All these years, if not for Senior Crane's protection, Ethereal Peak would have been destroyed several times. There's no need for that. There are thousands of nascent soul-perfected lords out there and none of them can advance to Void Reversion Realm without a powerful mental cultivation technique. You don't have to blame yourself." The red-headed beauty stretched her hand to help him up and said softly, "Don't worry, I will protect Ethereal Peak till the very end. I won't let down the task he entrusted for me back then." Ling Yun sighed. Actually, the group of disciples from last year had pretty decent endowments. Feng Haoyu, Lung Ro, Su Zimo and Little Fatty, their potentials are limitless. It's just a pity? Ling Yun did not continue. It was just a pity that none of them would be able to reach Void Reversion Realm within 100 years to help the sect tide over this calamity of annihilation. Chapter 150 100 Days of Foundation Establishment. Chapter 151 100 Days of Foundation Establishment. As the 5 peak masters ordered Su Zimo, Lung Ro and Little Fatty to remain silent, no one in the sect knew the details of the battle at Linfeng City. Everyone only vaguely heard that Lung Ro and company were met with an ambush when they went out. 2 inner sect disciples died tragically, and the 3 of them were only saved after golden cores of the sect arrived. Right after, the sect sent out orders restricting disciples from heading out, etc. As such, the tension was high within the sect. Even though most people did not know the reason, they felt a sense of danger and chose to enter seclusion cultivation. It was the same for Su Zimo as well. The reason why he joined Lung Ro and Little Fatty in heading out after returning from Thunderclap Valley was because he was lacking in spirit stones. Now, Su Zimo had sufficient spirit stones and he had already begun to cultivate fervently, bent on catching up on his lack of progress for the past 6 months. In his cave abode, Su Zimo resumed his normal cultivation routine. By absorbing spirit stones and refining elixirs in the day, he would then choose to consume perfect elixirs and continue raising his cultivation. At night, he would channel the tiger leopard thunder sound and continue with cleansing his marrow liquid, regenerating fresh and powerful blood. The effect of swapping blood through marrow cleansing was obvious. In the process, even the skin, flesh, tendons and bones would become stronger. Every morning after waking up, Su Zimo's body would be covered by a thin layer of black mud. Those were the impurities in his body. Both his immortality and demonic cultivation were steadily improving. With sufficient spirit stones to replenish his energy coupled with non-stop cultivation, Su Zimo reached perfected chi condensation after a single month. When he was at level 9 chi condensation, Su Zimo's dantian had already formed a sea of chi. Now that he was at perfected chi condensation, a change happened to the sea of chi once more. As though it was dyed a shade of red, flames burned on top of it, sending forth a beautiful and powerful aura. Even though he had no one to spar with, Su Zimo was certain that his current state of chi condensation was enough to crush all other chi refinement warriors of the same level. Just as Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relaxation, the sound of clothes fluttering came from outside his cave abode. Before long, someone knocked on the door. Su Zimo frowned. The footsteps sounded unfamiliar. There weren't many people who came to his cave abode usually, and it was mostly Little Fatty. However, it clearly wasn't him because those footsteps were light. Su Zimo waved his robes and the door to his cave abode opened. A fragrant scent wafted in as a woman wearing a snow-white blouse stood at the entrance. She had a cold expression, but a trace of uneasiness flickered through her eyes as she gazed inside somewhat nervously. That woman was Lung Ro. Surprised, Su Zimo stood up hurriedly and welcomed her with cupped fists. "I didn't expect it to be Senior Sister Lung. Come in quickly." "Yes," she replied softly and entered with her head lowered. Given Lung Ro's character, she might not even be willing to meet anyone if they came to visit. If anyone knew that she had taken the initiative to visit a male disciple at his place, their jaws would surely drop. "Is there anything, Senior Sister Lung?" Su Zimo asked with a smile. Pondering for a moment, Lung Ro replied, "I haven't thanked you for everything that happened outside Linfeng City. I'm here to thank you for that formally." "So, it's about that." Su Zimo smiled and waved it off. "It's nothing much. I was also saving myself as well. You don't have to worry about it." Lung Ro nodded and said nothing more. She was not good at conversing to begin with, while Su Zimo was not good at asking questions. The atmosphere suddenly turned cold and awkward. Hesitating for a moment, Lung Ro continued, "Junior brother Su, I've made 2 grade 2 talismans. Please take them as a token of appreciation for saving my life." With that, Lung Ro retrieved 2 pieces of talismans from her storage bag and handed them over. However, her head was lowered and she did not look at Su Zimo. Su Zimo thought to himself, "If I reject her, things might get even more awkward." At that thought, he reached out and took the 2 talismans before smiling. "Thank you, Senior Sister Lung." When Su Zimo received the talismans, Lung Ro's nervous expression finally relaxed. She lifted her head and glanced at Su Zimo before turning away speedily. One of the 2 talismans was a protection talisman while the other was an offensive talisman. Sensing the aura the talismans exuded, Su Zimo nodded silently. The 2 talismans should be the strongest among grade 2 talismans. It was clear that Lung Ro had spent a lot of effort on them. Su Zimo thought to himself, "It's a pity I can't refine middle grade spirit weapons. Otherwise I would have made one and returned the favor." By now, Su Zimo was able to advance to Foundation Establishment realm at any time. His 6 inferior grade flying swords could no longer keep up with his cultivation. If he wanted to set up a sword formation, he would have to refine his own flying swords. Right now, Su Zimo's technique for tempering was way too crude. Even if he had superior grade materials, he would not be able to remove the impurities and etch the second spirit pattern. That was a huge problem he was eager to solve. The both of them chatted casually a little more and Lung Ro left. From his storage bag, Su Zimo retrieved an elixir that looked mysterious with 5 patterns on it. It was a perfect foundation establishment elixir. He had created that foundation establishment elixir during the face-off against Su Zimo on Elixir Peak. At the thought of Feng Haoyu, Su Zimo could not help but recall how the former had stopped and threatened him after the Elixir Peak face-off. At that moment, it seemed as though Feng Haoyu was just doing it out of spite. But after Su Zimo thought about it, things did not seem as simple. After advancing to Foundation Establishment Realm, Su Zimo would inevitably come across Feng Haoyu once more and he did not know what that guy would do next. After all, Feng Haoyu had experienced that terrible defeat. If he made a comeback he would not be easy to deal with. With that thought in mind, Su Zimo swallowed the Foundation Establishment elixir. It melted instantly in his mouth, sending a warm stream down his throat into his dantian that emitted a powerful medicinal effect. Under the influence of that medicinal effect, Su Zimo calmed himself down and gathered the sea of qi within his dantian. He was neither anxious nor hurried. As the name suggested, Foundation Establishment was for one to lay down the foundation. If one's foundation was lacking, their future cultivation path could be problematic. The scarlet sea of qi shrank endlessly and reduced in size. However, the aura that was being emitted was increasingly powerful and terrifying. Time began to slip away just like that. Su Zimo was in no rush. 4 normal cultivators to establish their foundations, the fast ones would take less than 2 hours and the slowest ones would take up to 5 days. However, there was no one as slow as Su Zimo. A full 100 days had passed by before Su Zimo opened his eyes that shone with a sharp glint. The sea of qi within his dantian had finally disappeared and turned into a scarlet spirit liquid. There was a qualitative change in his spirit qi, transforming it into spirit energy. 100 days of foundation establishment. Even though they were 100 ordinary days, Su Zimo had set up a foundation sturdier than anything else. On this day, Su Zimo walked out of his cave abode and summoned his flying sword. He headed for the main peak. Upon reaching Foundation Establishment Realm, one could take part in the inner sect assessment at the main peak. As long as they passed, they would become inner sect disciples. Chapter 152 Shock. Chapter 152 Shock. The inner sect assessment was relatively simple. It merely tested the disciples on their control and insights toward sword kinesis as well as whether their foundations were stable. When the testing elder saw that it was Su Zimo, he gave the latter an inner sect identity badge without conducting the assessment at all. Under Little Fatty's lead, the two of them circled the main peak before looking for a suitable cave abode to settle down. All that trouble took up half a day's time. Before long, news of Su Zimo becoming an inner sect disciple spread out through the inner sect. Right as Su Zimo was about to return to his cave abode and return to seclusion cultivation of Ethereal Foundation Establishment, a group of people walked over. They looked unfriendly and were sneering. Leading the pack was a former disciple of Spirit Peak, Sun Tao, who was knocked unconscious by a single slap of Su Zimo. After half a year, Sun Tao was already at early-stage foundation establishment as well. The other people were unfamiliar and they had different cultivations. There were even late-stage foundation establishment cultivators. All of those people surrounded Su Zimo and Little Fatty before long. With a smile, Little Fatty cupped his fists. "Senior brothers, what do you need?" Little Fatty, make way. This is none of your business. Sun Tao snorted coldly and looked at Su Zimo. Raising his eyebrows, he said, "Su Zimo, you ambushed me while I was unprepared back in Spirit Peak. We haven't settled that debt yet. I'm not someone to take advantage of you. Since you're already at early-stage foundation establishment now, today is a good time. We'll fight it out in the spirit arena." In truth, even though they were both at early-stage foundation establishment, one had just advanced and the other was at a peak state. Furthermore, Su Zimo had just become an inner sect disciple and had yet to learn any spirit arts. As for Sun Tao, he had already been in the inner sect for a few months now with a few spirit arts under his belt. Everyone could tell whether or not it was fair, but no one said anything. Little Fatty had a strange expression as he looked at Sun Tao with a hint of pity in his gaze. However, he did not say anything as well. Su Zimo could not be bothered with Sun Tao and merely shook his head. I'm not interested. Humph. Sun Tao's expression darkened as he yelled, Su Zimo, that's not up to you. Oh. Narrowing his gaze, Su Zimo looked at Sun Tao for a moment and suddenly laughed. What do you mean? Su Zimo, stop pretending. A disciple at the side shouted, You must have been a burden to senior brothers Lu and Guan at the spirit mine of Linfeng City since you were just a Qi refinement warrior. How else would they have died? What nonsense are you talking about? Hearing that, little fatty could not help but berate them. He was well aware of what happened at the spirit mine, but no one else knew. One of them sneered, Even though the three of you refused to say anything about that incident, all of us can roughly guess everything. Su Zimo must have been a burden to our two senior brothers. Su Zimo was expressionless as he listened to their accusations. It was a baseless rumor that came from an illogical conclusion. Despite being so ridiculous, there were many in the inner sect that bought it. Repeated rumors turn into facts. Su Zimo did not believe that it wasn't intentionally spread by someone. Sun Tao scoffed coldly, Su Zimo, even if you reject my challenge today, there will be many other senior brothers coming to challenge you from this day forth in the name of our two dead senior brothers. You can dream about cultivating in peace from now on. With an unchanged expression, Su Zimo nodded. All right, let's head to the spirit arena. For some reason, Sun Tao felt uneasy when he heard Su Zimo's carefree tone. After all, Su Zimo had already defeated Feng Haoyu back when he was in Qi Condensation Realm. Now that he was at Foundation Establishment Realm, Su Zimo must be even stronger. However, Sun Tao thought again. How could Su Zimo be a match for him since the latter had just joined the inner sect and had yet to learn spirit arts? By the time Sun Tao's imagination was done running wild, everyone had arrived at the spirit arena of the main peak. Su Zimo entered it slowly, looking calm and composed. Whipping out his flying sword, Sun Tao leapt into the spirit arena. He conjured hand seals with his left hand and spirit energy reverberated on his fingertips. The spirit art was taking shape. Haha, today is where I will reclaim my dignity. Sun Tao conjured his spirit art and composed himself. He could not help but burst out in laughter smugly. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged as he said nonchalantly, Sun Tao, if I can knock you out the first time, I can knock you out a second time. Boom. Right after he said that, Su Zimo disappeared from sight. Between the both of them, a flurry of afterimages appeared and in the blink of an eye, Su Zimo arrived before Sun Tao. He had not made use of spirit weapons nor energy. This was purely a burst of his physical strength. An intense and ferocious aura gushed out. For a moment, Sun Tao felt that he was not facing a human, but an ancient beast. He did not have time to think as he struck with the spirit art in his left hand. Controlling his flying sword with his right hand, he willed it to stab forward. He almost did not have to aim at all since they were so close together. Bang! Boom! Boom! Suddenly, Sun Tao heard a horrifying sound of a tsunami surging in his ears. Su Zimo's eyes lit up, his power of blood bursting forth. With a casual punch, Su Zimo destroyed Sun Tao's spirit art. Right after, he sidestepped and dodged the incoming sword and with a flip of his hand, he struck Sun Tao's face ruthlessly. This was the exact same move that he had done on Spirit Peak. Sun Tao was alarmed as he felt his vision turn black. A torrential force descended upon him and he fell backwards uncontrollably. Bang! A flash of blood appeared as the back of his head landed on the ground. Sun Tao fainted on the spot. It was too fast. The inner sect disciples that were spectating below were not prepared for Sun Tao to collapse on the spirit arena after just a mere moment of contact. Stunned on the spot, most of them had not registered the fact yet. Suddenly, Su Zimo turned around and looked at the inner sect disciples. He said calmly, anyone else who is unconvinced can come up together. I'll take all of you guys at the same time. Everyone was in an uproar. The next moment, inner sect disciples below burned with instant rage and shouted, preposterous. How arrogant. What did Su Zimo mean by that? He was looking down at everyone as though they were nothing. All the inner sect disciples present were at the peak of their youth. How could any of them tolerate such insolence from a disciple who had just entered the inner sect? Little Fatty secretly frowned, somewhat confused. In reality, after what Sun Tao said, Su Zimo realized that this was actually a scheme of the enemy hiding in the depths. No matter what, he had to accept this challenge. As Sun Tao said, if he did not resolve it today, he would not be able to cultivate in peace in the future. The simplest and most effective way of settling it was to shock. It wasn't just to shock Sun Tao's group. More than that, it was to shock the enemy plotting against him in the dark. Therefore, Su Zimo was not just going to take down Sun Tao's group today. He was going to reveal his true strength and crush everything completely. Chapter 153 Sky Treasure Auction House. Chapter 153 Sky Treasure Auction House. Although many disciples were infuriated, they were still able to remain rational and did not rush up together. A mid-stage Foundation establishment cultivator was the first to enter the spirit arena as he remarked coldly, "Junior brother Su, aren't you being too arrogant?" Before that person could finish, Su Zimo took 2 steps and arrived before him. Without a second word, he raised his hands and drew an arc in the air. His punch was filled with power as though a gigantic stamp was crushing down. That person yelped and crushed a protection talisman right away. Su Zimo's fist slammed heavily against the barrier of the protection talisman, causing it to shake violently. Right after, a series of terrifying sounds could be heard. Crack, crack, crack. Cracks appeared and extended on the surface of the light barrier. A Grade 2 protection talisman was destroyed by a single punch from Su Zimo. That person was scared out of his wits. Without waiting for Su Zimo to continue punching, he jumped down from the spirit arena with fear in his eyes. Retreating frantically, he was like a stray dog. Another inner sect disciple grit his teeth and leaped into the spirit arena, summoning his flying sword instantly. 2 spirit lights shone dazzlingly on the sword. It was a middle-grade flying sword. On the other side, that person conjured hand seals and pointed it at Su Zimo's feet. Suddenly, thick vines grew out like snakes, climbing and wrapping themselves tightly around Su Zimo's ankles. The flying sword and spirit art struck at the same time, complementing each other perfectly. If it was anyone else, they would definitely not be able to dodge the flying sword's attack with their bodies restricted. However, Su Zimo's bloodline was way too strong. Unless it was a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator, no one else could trap him. Bang! Boom! Boom! The blood within Su Zimo's body rumbled as lightning flashed. Striking the vines conjured by the spirit art, the power of thunder electrocuted it into nothingness. Swash! At the same time, the flying sword pierced towards Su Zimo's glabella. Laughing gently, Su Zimo did not dodge at all. He extended his palm and caressed the incoming sword gently, soft as a tongue. The flying sword fell into Su Zimo's palm obediently. As for Su Zimo's palm, it was completely unharmed. The inner sect disciple on the other end opened his mouth wide and his eyeballs nearly popped out. Such methods were far beyond his knowledge. Grabbing weapons barehanded was just a small trick among martial artists to deal with mortals. But no one had ever seen a cultivator who could deal with a Foundation establishment cultivator's flying sword using just his bare hands. "Everyone, let's attack together!" Someone suddenly shouted from the crowd. The tens of disciples below leaped into the spirit arena hot-headedly. "That's the way!" Su Zimo burst out in laughter. He took a few steps and slammed into the crowd, exploding the power of his bloodline. Using his unparalleled might and ferocious fist techniques, he crushed his way through everyone. Bang! 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 Accompanied by cries of pain, the sound of fists and flesh colliding rang out constantly as bodies fell one after another. Many people had just entered the spirit arena. However, they were knocked down by Su Zimo before they could even stand firmly. In the blink of an eye, bodies were strewn all over the spirit arena. They were completely defeated. Far away, 3 cultivators stood. From their identity badges, they were also inner sect disciples. However, their auras were extraordinary and they were clearly unlike everyone else. That's Su Zimo, the number 1 of 4 peaks last year. His melee combat strength is rather decent. However, it's of little use. Yes. Against us, he won't even have a chance to get close, someone among them laughed. I heard that there were quite a number of disciples with decent endowment last year. Other than Su Zimo, there's Feng Haoyu and a beauty called Leng Ro. Yes. All 3 of them have a chance to become legacy disciples just like us. That's for the future. Let's continue our seclusion and prepare for the sect competition. Feng Haoyu watched everything expressionlessly and turned around to head back to his cave abode. As soon as he entered and closed the door, Feng Haoyu stopped in his tracks as if he sensed something. That lad's methods are terrifying. At the spirit mine of Linfeng City, more than 30 Foundation establishment cultivators died in his hands. There was even a late stage among them. A hoarse voice sounded suddenly. It came from a black figure standing in a corner of the cave abode. Feng Haoyu was secretly shocked. None of the sect disciples knew about what happened at Linfeng City. Only the 5 peak masters and some elders who went as reinforcements knew about it. Feng Haoyu said, "According to what you said, Senior, I'm unable to deal with him given my current abilities. Furthermore, I can't kill Su Zimo inside the sect." "Have you learned all 3 major secret skills?" The hoarse voice sounded once more. "Yes." Feng Haoyu nodded. Obtaining the 3 major secret skills of Ethereal Peak was a large part of his mission. "Record them for me." "No," Feng Haoyu shook his head. "Oh." The tone of the black figure changed. Instantly the atmosphere within the cave abode turned tense and was filled with killing intent. "Before I learned the secret skills, Ling Yun made me swear not to spread the secret skills externally," Feng Haoyu explained. "I have no choice either." The cave abode fell silent. After a moment the black figure laughed sinisterly. "Umph. Not to spread them? We shall see how long more Ethereal Peak can hang on for. When the time comes I'll come and snatch the 3 major secret skills personally." "What about Su Zimo and the 3 legacy disciples of Ethereal Peak?" Feng Haoyu asked again. "Su Zimo is manageable. However, those 3 legacy disciples are mostly in seclusion and rarely show their faces. There's no chance to strike at all." The black figure ordered, "Don't act rashly lest we alert the enemy. We'll find a chance before the sect competition to take down the 4 of them in one fell swoop. Let's see who else Ethereal Peak can send to the sect competition." A cold gust of wind blew past and the black figure disappeared from Feng Haoyu's cave abode. As Su Zimo had expected, no one in the inner sect sought trouble with him after that fight. For the next 2 months, he locked himself in seclusion and absorbed spirit stones continuously, cultivating the Ethereal Foundation establishment to raise his cultivation. 2 months later it was almost the end of the year. Su Zimo was now at the peak of early-stage Foundation establishment. He thought about it deeply and decided to head out for a walk. His main goal was to find a secret manual to hone one's weapon refinement skill. Without a manual like that, Su Zimo would not be able to improve on his weapon refinement technique. No matter how high his cultivation was, he would be almost half as weak if he was unable to make use of sword formations. Without letting anyone know, Su Zimo left quietly. His destination was to a place called Jianghu City. It was an important city within the Great Zhou dynasty and contained a sky treasure auction house. Typically, as long as there was a city where cultivators gathered, there would be a sky treasure pavilion. However, there weren't many sky treasure auction houses within the Great Zhou dynasty. Jianghu City was the closest city to Ethereal Peak that had one. Sky Treasure Auction House intended to try his luck at Sky Treasure Auction House. Ever since that fight outside of Linfeng City, he had quite a bit of spirit stones in his storage bag. It was just convenient for him. The Sky Treasure Badge was proof that someone was qualified to take part in the auction. Otherwise, who could tell if anyone was there to fish in troubled waters? Furthermore, most cultivators who were able to obtain a Sky Treasure Badge were those who had sold a certain number of items in the Sky Treasure Pavilion. It was also verifiable proof of the person's identity and strength. At a moment like this, Ethereal Peak Sect Badge was not as useful as a Sky Treasure Badge. Su Zimo did have a Sky Treasure Badge indeed, and it was a gold one. However, he had never used that gold badge ever since he found out about Ji Yaoshua's identity, afraid that it would attract unnecessary trouble. But with the current situation, Su Zimo had no choice but to hand the Sky Treasure Gold Badge over. When the guard saw that it was a gold badge, he could not help but frown. Typically, someone of Su Zimo's cultivation, early-stage foundation establishment, would be hard-pressed to even possess a silver badge. Sky Treasure Gold badges were almost only exclusive to golden cores. Only golden cores were worthy of a gold badge. The guard's first instinct was that the Sky Treasure Gold badge was fake. Without a change of expression, he pressed gently in the middle of the Sky Treasure gold badge. His expression softened and he nodded to the other guard. The Sky Treasure gold badge was authentic. Before this, there had been incidents of fake Sky Treasure badges as well. However, no one had managed to bluff their way through. The main reason was that in the center of every Sky Treasure badge, there would be a unique mark that outsiders would not be able to replicate. A single touch by the guard was enough to tell of whether the gold badge was authentic. This green-robed scholar's background is not simple. The elders in his family must dote on him to be willing to give a Sky Treasure gold badge to an early-stage foundation establishment. One of the guards said secretly and nodded to Su Zimo. He then moved aside and handed the Sky Treasure gold badge back. Su Zimo took the token and it slid through the guard's hand. Right as it was about to leave the guard's hand, a cold glint flashed in the guard's eyes as though he had realized something as he held onto the Sky Treasure gold badge tightly. Something was not right. When the Sky Treasure gold badge slid through his hand, he had clearly touched a word character. The guard snatched back the Sky Treasure gold badge and waved his hand. Instantly, a few more Foundation establishment cultivators appeared beside him, looking malicious and unfriendly as they surrounded Su Zimo in a circle. "What's wrong?" Su Zimo frowned and asked. The guard looked at Su Zimo and grunted. Whisking the Sky Treasure gold badge up, he scrutinized it under his eyes. At the right corner of the Sky Treasure gold badge, there was a character the size of a mosquito. As long as one focused on it, they would be able to recognize that it was the word Shui. The guard handed the Sky Treasure gold badge to another person with a darkened expression. If not for that Shui character, the Sky Treasure gold badge would be authentic. However, it was way too fake with it. This was clearly the badge of the Great Zhou dynasty's third princess. How could it be in the hands of an outsider? One, how dare you forge a fake Sky Treasure gold badge? You really don't know the meaning of death. Take him down. Another guard shouted after checking out the badge. Hold on. Su Zimo was extremely calm as he said in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoist, what right do you have to say that my badge is fake? You have no proof at all. You have to give me some evidence." There was no way the Sky Treasure gold badge could be fake and Su Zimo wanted to see what the guard had to say. The guard sneered. "All right, I'll make sure you die convinced." Right as that person was about to speak, a commotion broke out not far away and the crowd was restless. Looking from the corner of his eye, the guard trembled and he looked respectful right away. There was even a look of intoxication in his eyes. It was the same for everyone else as they actually forgot about Su Zimo for the moment. Out of curiosity, Su Zimo turned over. Chapter 155 Chief Steward Gu. Chapter 155 Chief Steward Gu. A group of maidservants surrounded two women as they walked over. At the very front, the woman's skin was fair as snow. She had an exquisite appearance and her steps exuded a mature charm. The woman had a smile on her face, and her every move exuded an air of gracefulness. Clearly, her status in the Sky Treasure auction house was not low. Beside her, there was a young girl in a long pink dress. Even though her face was covered with a veil, her beautiful eyes sparkled and made one's heart flutter. Both women had their own merits and were rare beauties. They walked side by side like sisters. As soon as they appeared, they attracted everyone's attention, burning like fire. Gulps could be heard in the surroundings in a spectacular manner. To think that Chief Steward Gu would actually grace our Chiyu City's Sky Treasure auction house. I'm willing to give up 10 years of my life just to have some sort of relationship with Chief Steward Gu. Someone like you will never be entertained by the likes of Chief Steward Gu. I heard that there was a golden core who had nefarious thoughts and was killed that very night with his head hung on display in the city for an entire month. After cultivating the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, Su Zimo's hearing far exceeded others. Even though the discussions were hushed, he could still hear them. So, it's her. Su Zimo muttered to himself. When he arrived in Chiyu City yesterday, Su Zimo heard quite a number of people talking about this woman. Her name was Gu Shi and she was the chief steward of the Sky Treasure auction house. It was said that even the emperor of the Great Zhou dynasty was very respectful to her. She was a large part of the reason why Sky Treasure auction house was so famous. No one knew the cultivation of that woman. However, none of those who harbored evil intentions towards her through the years had lived to tell the tale. Mysterious, elegant and beautiful. The combination of those words turned Gu Shi into the most famous woman in the Great Zhou dynasty. someone who could only be seen from afar and not touched. Since the Sky Treasure Auction House in Chiu City was not the main branch, Su Zimo had not expected that he would come across the great Chief Steward Gu here. Who is the pink-dressed girl beside Chief Steward Gu? She's very unfamiliar. Cut the crap. How can you recognize her through the veil? Even with the veil, I feel like I'm going out of my mind. If I could see her face even once, I would die without regrets. In the crowd, many people shifted their attention to the girl in pink. Su Zimo had tried to use his spirit-peering art to check out the two women. Wuxia aside, he couldn't even detect the cultivation of the girl in pink. It was as if the girl was shrouded by a layer of fog that made it impossible to see her clearly. Right then, Wuxia's gaze landed on Su Zimo. Pausing for a moment, she asked, "What's wrong?" "Chief Steward. This punk tried to forge a Sky Treasure Gold badge but was discovered by us." One of the guards hurried forward and bowed down respectfully, holding up Su Zimo's Sky Treasure Gold badge with both hands. Wuxia smiled and took over the Sky Treasure Gold badge casually. She then looked at Su Zimo with a faint smile. "You look decent, but you've got quite the guts. There's nothing more to say about this. According to the rules, kill this person." "Oh." Before Wuxia could complete her sentence, her expression changed slightly. She raised her brow and brought the Sky Treasure Gold badge closer to have a better look. After a moment, Wuxia raised her head and surveyed Su Zimo with scrutiny. She had a strange expression. "Auntie Gu, what's wrong?" The girl in pink noticed the weird atmosphere and asked softly. Her voice was gentle to the bones and really alluring. Wuxia glanced sideways and remained silent. However, a voice rang out in the girl in pink's mind, "This badge should be real, but I don't know why it's with this person. Take a look." Only nascent souls could make use of techniques such as voice transmission. The girl in pink took over the badge and was slightly taken aback when she saw the Shui character at the bottom right. In the blink of an eye, she seemed to have thought of something. The corners of her lips curled under the veil and her eyes sparkled. She whispered into Wuxia's ears, "This badge is authentic. I know who this person is. Auntie Gu, call him over. I have something to discuss with him." Access web novel. Live if you like watching manga comics. Wuxia acknowledged and handed the Sky Treasure Gold badge back, saying, "The badge is authentic." "Ah. It's real?" The two guards were stumped on the spot. This was clearly the badge of the Great Zhou dynasty's third princess. If it was authentic, what was this person's relationship with the third princess? "Stop making wild guesses and don't spout nonsense." As though she could read their minds, Wuxia remarked coldly. The two guards were rattled and hurriedly nodded in agreement. Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief. Just as he put away the Sky Treasure Gold badge, he felt a burning gaze on him. Wuxia and that girl in pink were both watching him. Even though the girl in pink was wearing a veil, Su Zimo could almost see a smile on her face. "Follow me." Suddenly, an unquestionable voice rang in Su Zimo's mind. It was Wuxia's. Together with the girl in pink, Wuxia walked towards a side door of the inner house. Su Zimo hesitated for a moment before following them. The side door to the inner house was only accessible to the employees. Outsiders could only enter through the main door after displaying their Sky Treasure badge. Now that Su Zimo was following Wuxia and the girl in pink through the side door, it caused a commotion outside. Who is that green-robed scholar? What rights does he have? Many people were green with envy. Someone coughed gently and tried striding towards the side door as though nothing was wrong. However, he was stopped by the guard. He tried to talk his way out of it but to no avail and could only leave in a huff. Inside the inner house, things were much quieter and there was evidently less people. Wuxia and the girl in pink walked at the front while Su Zimo followed them. Calm and composed, he did not say anything and merely surveyed the surroundings. The layout of the inner house was like a large funnel and guests were separated into 3 general regions based on their colors. The seats at the bottom were for the bronze badge owners. It was a cramped place without much room for activity. Above the bronzes were the silver seats and they were slightly more spacious. Another few levels up and it was at the gold area. Here the rooms were divided and partitioned. Beautiful gems decorated the rooms and even though no one from the outside could look in, those within could see everything perfectly clear. Above the gold area was another circle of individual rooms. From the outside they looked even more spacious and magnificent. Su Zimo wondered who they were made for. On both sides of the entrances of the rooms at the top, beautiful and gorgeous young women stood waiting. Chapter 156 Fiend Sects. Chapter 156 Fiend Sects. Su Zimo followed Gu Shi and the girl in pink up a jade-green staircase to the area where the most spacious rooms were. "Follow me in," Gu Shi looked at Su Zimo and said before entering a room. Maidservants stood on both sides and bowed slightly with a smile. They looked at Su Zimo with respect and envy. In the room, there was a row of seats and a table displaying various alluring fruits that emanated spirit chi. "Sit anywhere you want." The girl in pink told Su Zimo and pointed at the table of fruits. "Even golden cores downstairs are not able to eat these." Su Zimo did not reply and merely nodded his head, remaining somewhat cautious. He had realized early on that the Sky Treasure Gold Badge was the reason why their attitudes towards him were so strange. Previously, Su Zimo had always thought that Ji Yaoshua had given him a very common gold badge. Now it seemed like things were not so simple. "Hey, what's your name?" The moment Su Zimo sat down, the girl in pink approached him. She asked in a coquettish tone and her eyes appeared watery with ripples in them. Her body was almost plastered entirely onto Su Zimo as the scent of a young girl wafted over. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He leaned back slightly and said in a low voice, "I'm Su Zimo." The moment he said that, he realized that something was amiss. He had blurted out his answer without thinking at all after the girl in pink questioned him. Su Zimo felt a lingering fear in his heart. It felt as though he was not in control of himself and he would tell her anything she wanted to know. What was even more frightening was that the girl exuded an alluring aura. Every frown and smile of hers seemed extremely charming. Even though it was just a casual chat, Su Zimo could already feel himself getting restless and his body was heating up. It was very sinister. Su Zimo gripped his fists tightly as sweat formed on his palms. If the girl was already so powerful with her veil on, what would happen if she were to remove it? He could stay here no longer. Rising, he cupped his fists. "Chief Steward, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave now." Gu Shi did not say anything and merely looked at the both of them silently. "What's the hurry? Aren't you here for the auction? Just sit here and bid then," the girl in pink said. Suddenly, she rolled her eyes and moved in front of Su Zimo. Raising her head, she smiled and asked, "What's wrong? Are you scared?" Su Zimo was indeed a little afraid, but there was no way he could admit that. "Miss, you must be joking." With an indifferent expression, Su Zimo looked straight and replied calmly, "As a disciple of Ethereal Peak, I am upright and honest. There is nothing to be scared of." Su Zimo mentioned the name of his sect in the hopes of frightening the other party. At the end of the day, Ethereal Peak was one of the 5 major sects within the Great Zhou dynasty. "Wow!" the girl in pink exclaimed and remarked with a look of awe, "Ethereal Peak. That's one of the 5 major sects. How impressive." The corner of Gu Shi's mouth twitched as if she wanted to laugh. But she held it back. Su Zimo could tell that the girl in pink was obviously being sarcastic. She sounded like she was joking, as if Ethereal Peak was nothing to her. Even though he was embarrassed, it was not appropriate for him to get angry. As such, he could only ask, "How should I address you, miss? What sect are you from?" "Me? I can't tell you that now, hee." The girl in pink laughed and blinked intently. She looked extremely innocent and beautiful. No one could get angry at her expression. "Do you know what's odd about that Sky Treasure Gold Badge?" the girl in pink suddenly asked. "I don't," Su Zimo shook his head. "Take it out and have a closer look," she continued. Ever since he obtained the Sky Treasure Gold Badge, Su Zimo had truly not taken a good look at it. Now that he was scrutinizing it, he immediately found something unusual. At the bottom right of the badge etched an exquisite Shui character. The girl in pink's voice rang out once more. "This is the gold badge of the Great Zhou dynasty's 3rd princess, also known as the Royal Family Gold Badge. There's less than 10 of this in the entire Great Zhou dynasty." No wonder. Su Zimo was shocked. Back then, Ji Yaoshua mentioned that everything would be at least 50% cheaper if he were to shop at Sky Treasure Pavilion using this Sky Treasure Gold Badge. At that time, Su Zimo was surprised and felt that things couldn't possibly be that cheap. So, this badge was meant for the descendants of the Great Zhou dynasty's royal family. "Hey, what's your relationship with the Great Zhou dynasty's 3rd princess?" A cunning look flashed in the girl in pink's eyes as she asked with a bright smile. Su Zimo shook his head. Nothing much. We're just ordinary friends. Who would believe that? The girl in pink pouted her lips and teased, someone the likes of the third princess would give that badge to an ordinary friend. Su Zimo did not reply. Hey Su Zimo. How about doing me a favor? The girl in pink suddenly said as she rolled her eyes. Su Zimo asked, what? Help me beat up bad guys. The girl in pink raised her fists and said solemnly, yes, they are all evil devils. As a disciple of Ethereal Peak, you should take up the responsibility of protecting the way of the Tao by getting rid of the demons. Nopes, Su Zimo shook his head. He did not care what sort of bad guys those were. He merely wanted to keep his distance from this girl. Beside her, Gushi suddenly frowned. Releasing her spirit consciousness, she set up a barrier between her and the girl in pink. What nonsense is this? Don't tell me you want this lad to accompany you to that? Yes. The girl in pink replied nonchalantly. Don't go. Gushi persuaded, I can't help you there. The fiend heirs of this generation's fiend sects are not kind souls. If you piss them off they might really kill you. Tisk. The girl in pink replied disdainfully, fiend heirs? So what? I'm a fiend heir too. Who's afraid of whom? If they piss me off I'll kill them too. Besides, can't you see I'm getting a helper along? With that the girl in pink looked at Su Zimo. Him? Gushi shook her head and did not continue to speak. However, her tone was clearly filled with disdain. The girl in pink smiled brightly. I heard from my sister that this Su Zimo is rather decent in melee combat. That's useless. Gushi shook her head. This generation's geniuses in the fiend sects are too strong. Putting aside the successor of Overlord Palace, this Su Zimo is nothing compared to the other fiend heirs as well. If he goes there he'll just be committing suicide. Your sister has a close relationship with him. If he were to die because of you she's definitely going to blame you. Humph, if he were to die it'll be just nice to let everything end completely. The girl in pink sneered, at least my sister won't have to worry about this person from time to time. She even argued with our father a couple of times over this guy. In my opinion this Su Zimo is nothing much. He looks extremely ordinary. I don't even know what my sister sees in him. Are you decided? Gushi asked. The girl in pink nodded. However, she rolled her eyes and frowned. But if he doesn't want to go, I can't hold a knife to his throat and force him to go. There's always a way, Gushi said mysteriously. Chapter 157 Faked Composure. Chapter 157 Faked Composure. What are you intending to purchase this time? Removing the sound barrier, Gushi looked at Su Zimo and smiled. Nothing much. I'm just casually browsing. Even though he did not know what they were talking about, Su Zimo gathered that it must have something to do with him. Naturally, he would not reveal his plans foolishly as well. Gushi smiled and did not ask further. She changed the topic and said, the auction will start very soon. Why don't you sit here? If you take a liking to anything, I might even be able to help. Despite the disparity in their statuses, Gushi was extending invitations to him repeatedly. Su Zimo made up his mind and thought, since I'm here I'll just go along with the flow. It's not as though they will do anything to me either. With that, he sat down comfortably and started eating the fruits on the table as though there was no one else around. Through the crystals in front of him, he could clearly see that the seats outside were already filled. It was extremely lively and hyped. Not long after, the auction officially began after the ring of a bell and the crowd gradually quietened down. A middle-aged man dressed in luxurious clothes walked up to the round platform in the middle and surveyed the surroundings. Before saying anything he smiled and cupped his fists. I am the manager of Chiyu City Sky Treasure Auction House. Welcome, fellow Taoists. I hope that all of you will be able to return with your hands full today. Hurry and begin. Some of the cultivators were already growing impatient as they yelled. The manager smiled and did not say another word. Waving behind him, a beautiful maidservant who was carrying a tray with both hands shook her hips and walked forward. Unveiling the cloth covering the tray, the manager revealed a flying sword beneath. Its blade was sparkling like limpid autumn waters and there were 3 spirit patterns on it. A superior grade spirit weapon. This is the Autumn Water Sword and it was made by the most famous advanced weapon refinement master in our great Zhou dynasty, Mr. Lian. I'm sure everyone has heard of him, so I shall not introduce further. The starting price of this sword will be at 2,000 spirit stones. Each bid must not be less than 100. Su Zimo was secretly speechless. The auction started off right away with a superior grade spirit weapon. He wondered what else would appear later on. He also did not know who Mr. Lian was. As if she could see the doubt in Su Zimo's mind, Gushi said, "His name is Lian Feng and he's from the True Fire sect. He became famous after creating a supreme grade spirit weapon. In the Great Zhou dynasty, advanced weapon refinement masters are considered as rare talents. Out of respect, cultivators who are not familiar with him will refer to him as Mr. Lian." Su Zimo nodded. Many cultivators outside were already starting to bid. In just a short while, the price of the autumn water sword had already increased to 3,000 spirit stones. Su Zimo had not much interest towards spirit weapons. Before long, the autumn water sword was sold at a price of 3,700 spirit stones to a perfected foundation establishment cultivator. The manager was all smiles, seemingly pleased as he beckoned with his hand for the second item to be brought forth. Unveiling the cloth, there was a jade bottle beneath that should contain some elixirs. This is an inferior grade grade 2 elixir. I'm sure everyone is well familiar with it. I present to you, the Meridian Unlocking Elixir. It will start at 5,000 spirit stones and each bid will be nothing less than 500. Su Zimo's eyes lit up. After foundation establishment cultivators reach the perfected stage, they would have to unlock the 8 meridians. The amazing thing about the Meridian Unlocking Elixir was that a foundation establishment cultivator would have a high chance of unlocking a meridian after consuming it. Of course, the better the quality of the Meridian Unlocking Elixir, the better the chances of unlocking the meridian. Furthermore, the elixir was only effective during the first consumption. Even then, it was quite a fearsome effect. Once a cultivator unlocked 7 meridians and consumed this elixir, they would have a high chance of unlocking all 8. Back in the ancient era, the Meridian Unlocking Elixir was extremely famous. Unfortunately, there were not many left behind and even the recipe had been lost. Su Zimo was a little moved and leaned forward slightly. Gushi glanced sideways and noticed Su Zimo's subtle action. "If you're interested, you can bid for it from here. The maidservants outside will help you relay the message." That was a privilege unique to rooms of this level. Read comics on our web novel. What? All the rooms were marked. For example, Su Zimo was in room 1 and there were 10 of such rooms at the top. The area below him where golden cores were, it had 90 rooms. Those were numbers 11 to 100. In a short period of time, the Meridian Unlocking Elixir's price was raised by many golden cores to 10,000 spirit stones. And this was merely an inferior grade Meridian Unlocking Elixir. Naturally, those golden cores had no use for it themselves. Most of them were getting it for their personal disciples. Su Zimo took a deep breath and temporarily gave up the idea of bidding for it. It wasn't because he had insufficient spirit stones, the pill's quality was too lousy for him. In the spirit mine of Linfeng City, Su Zimo had managed to obtain quite a number of middle-grade spirit stones. By now, his storage bag had more than 100,000 spirit stones. "Hey, are you feeling shy?" The girl in pink blinked and whispered, "If you like anything, I can help you." "It's fine, I have the ability to purchase it myself." Su Zimo rejected her indifferently. A look of shock flickered through the girl in pink's eyes as she laughed and asked, I couldn't tell at all. To think that an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator like yourself actually has the ability to purchase those items." Pausing for a moment, the girl in pink rolled her eyes and suddenly asked, "Do you know what spirit stones they are using to bid?" Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he realized that he had miscalculated something. There was no mention that the bidding in the inner house was done with inferior, middle or superior grade spirit stones. However, he had subconsciously thought that the bids were done with middle grade spirit stones. The difference in price between spirit stones of different grades was immense. Normally, 100 inferior grade spirit stones was equivalent to a single middle grade spirit stone. 100 middle grade spirit stones was equivalent to a superior grade spirit stone. Of course, there were supreme grade spirit stones above superior grades. If the bids earlier were referring to superior grade spirit stones, Su Zimo's 100,000 odd middle grade spirit stones would only be equivalent to around 1,000 or so superior grade spirit stones. He couldn't buy anything at all. Gushi commented at the side, Anyone who's been to the Sky Treasure Auction House will know that bids in the inner house are made with superior-grade spirit stones. If supreme-grade spirit stones are to be used, they would be mentioned explicitly. Su Zimo nodded. He looked calm and composed, pretending that he had known about it all along. However, he complained secretly in his heart, "This is awkward now." To normal people, Su Zimo's composure may have been able to fool them. However, he could not hide from Gushi and the girl in pink. What sort of cultivation did Gushi have? A single look was enough for her to read through Su Zimo's lies as she smiled faintly. The girl in pink looked at Su Zimo with narrowed eyes. However, she did not expose him as well and merely smiled foolishly. Suddenly, the girl in pink felt that this green-robed scholar was rather interesting. Under the girl in pink's watch, Su Zimo could barely hold it in anymore. Even if I continue staying here, I can't buy anything. I might as well leave earlier. At that thought, Su Zimo stood up. Right as he was about to bid farewell, an item was brought forth in the auction that attracted his attention. Chapter 158, Ancient Tempering Book. Chapter 158, Ancient Tempering Book. Next, this is a tempering technique for weapon refinement that was produced by an advanced weapon refinement master. 1,000 years ago, this person was extremely famous in the cultivation world of the Great Zhou dynasty. However, it was a pity that he had not managed to advance to nascent soul realm and died in the end. Although it was quite a good ending for his life. The manager beat around the bust before saying slowly, "That person is none other than Mr. Su Zhan." "It's him? That person is incredible. I heard that at his peak he created dozens of supreme-grade spirit weapons. It was said that he even created a perfect spirit weapon. He's quite amazing and many golden cores wish that they could obtain a spirit weapon from him." Many of the Foundation establishment cultivators present have not heard of that person. However, there was a commotion from the golden core rooms. Unveiling the cloth from the tray, the manager revealed a thin book that looked a little old with yellowed pages. The manager said in a dark voice, "This is Mr. Su's handbook. The starting price is at 100,000 spirit stones and every single bid must be no less than 1,000. Su Zimo looked at that book. His gaze was burning hot but his heart was ice cold. That ancient book was exactly what he needed and also the purpose of his trip. However, he could not afford it at all. That was not mentioning the fact that the starting price was at 100,000 superior-grade spirit stones. Even if it was at 100,000 middle-grade spirit stones, Su Zimo wouldn't be able to afford it after a couple rounds of bidding. Indeed, in just a short while, the price of that ancient book rose steadily and was close to 200,000. There were only a couple of people bidding. For ordinary cultivators, this ancient book could be worth nothing. However, it was a priceless treasure for weapon refinement masters. Even if the bidding was not a weapon refinement master, they must definitely have tons of relationship with weapon refinement. Right then, a voice sounded from room 77, 250,000. Su Zimo's eyes flickered and his heart skipped a beat. That voice sounded a little familiar. It sounded like the disheveled old man. Su Zimo was not absolutely certain since it was just a voice and he hadn't seen the other party. However, it was indeed true that he hardly saw the disheveled old man around the sect these days too. Gasps could be heard from the inner house. Previously it was at 200,000 but now it suddenly rose to 250,000. A jump of 50,000 superior-grade spirit stones was no small sum. The few rooms that had been bidding earlier instantly fell silent. Foo-foo. The manager smiled. The customer of room 77 sure is generous. Of course, that's also proof of this ancient book's value. 250,000, any higher bidders? As the manager of Sky Treasure Auction House, he naturally did not want the price to stay here. His statement was also casually reminding the other customers. After a momentary silence, a voice rang out from one of the rooms that was bidding earlier, 251,000. 300,000. Immediately after that, room 77 raised the price to 300,000 before the manager even spoke. This time round, the entire place was stunned. Could that person from room 77 be part of the auction house's staff? That's hard to say given how he just keeps raising the price. There was a commotion in the seats. After a long time, no one else raised the bid and the manager could only smile. Are there no higher bidders? In reality, 300,000 superior-grade spirit stones was more than enough and was almost the limit of how much that ancient book was worth. It would be inappropriate to raise the price any higher. The manager did not bear much hopes and merely declared loudly, 300,000 once. 300,000 twice. 300,000. 310,000. Suddenly, a dark voice sounded from room 80. When he heard that, the manager was delighted. Room 80 has raised the bid to 310,000. Are there any further bids? Even though he said that, his gaze was fixated on room 77. A short silence later, room 77 raised the price once more. 320,000. This time round, the cultivator of room 77 was clearly much more cautious, as though anything more than 300,000 was about his limit. 330,000. The cultivator in room 80 raised the price without hesitation. Gradually, the cultivator of room 77 became more hesitant. Each time he would only raise the price after thinking for a long time. In that period of time, the price of the ancient book was pushed up constantly by the two rooms and was now at 400,000. In truth, the actual value of that ancient book was only around 300,000. However, the value of that item was in how priceless it was. Tempering techniques were mostly kept secret and were difficult to purchase. It was now time for the cultivator in room 77 to speak. After a long time there was no sound. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, an arrogant laughter burst forth from room 80 as a golden core in red robe strode out. With a dark gaze, he looked at room 77 and scoffed coldly, "Old man, stop holding on if you can't. Even if this ancient book is given to Ethereal Peak, no one will be able to understand it." Upon hearing that, Su Zimo no longer had any doubts. Indeed, the door of room 77 was slammed open with a loud bang. An old man with long white hair and unshaved sideburns came out in a huff. He glared at the red-robed man and asked loudly, "Sima Ji, are you going against me on purpose? True Fire Sect has no lack of such tempering techniques. What are you fighting with me for?" "Because I like it." Sima Ji smiled smugly. "You?" The disheveled old man was at a loss for words. Sima Ji continued leisurely, "Old man, we're talking about 400,000 spirit stones here. Can you afford it? Look at how poor you are. Fufu, you might have to sell everything you have, right?" The disheveled old man's face turned steely green. It was as Sima Ji had said. He only had slightly more than 300,000 superior-grade spirit stones in his storage bag, and even that was pooled together with the other 4 peak masters. It truly meant that he was placing all his net worth and valuables to call for that 400,000. He was determined to get that ancient book. However, it was not for himself, it was for his disciple, Su Zimo. Ever since the 5 Peaks face-off, the disheveled old man had been adventuring outside. He wandered through various auction houses in hopes of purchasing a tempering technique. Su Zimo had long been able to create inferior-grade spirit weapons. However, he was stuck at the step of tempering. Even though the disheveled old man said nothing, he was anxious. He felt that he was letting down Su Zimo's talent in weapon refinement. Therefore, the disheveled old man would naturally not give up on a rare opportunity to get this ancient book on weapon tempering. However, he did not expect True Fire Sect's Sima Ji to be here. True Fire Sect was the strongest in the 5 major sects in terms of weapon and elixir refinement. They had no lack of weapon tempering techniques as such. The reason why Sima Ji was bidding relentlessly was because he did not want the disheveled old man to get his hands on that ancient book. "Old man, am I right?" Sima Ji laughed. "Go on back and don't come out to embarrass yourself." Many cultivators in the inner house were watching and making gossips. Even though the disheveled old man looked terrible and was trembling from head to toe, he could not refute. In room 1, Su Zimo suddenly stood up and looked at Gu Shi. "Chief Steward, can you lend me some spirit stones?" "What's there to lend? If you want that ancient book, just bid for it directly." Gu Shi seemed to have expected this. She merely smiled faintly and crossed her arms, replying casually, "You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."